Good morning. Please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Welcome. Please take your seats. The program will begin shortly. Welcome to the Elizabeth Dole Foundation 7th Annual National Convening Bold Steps for the Future. Action, Policy, and Priorities.
By Christmas, Coleco figures it will have sold 20 million Cabbage Patch Kids.
Mr. President, I want to thank you for the challenge, for the opportunities which you have given me to serve as a member of your cabinet, and I want to pledge to you that I will give you my very best effort with the help of God.
Thousands of West Germans come to make the point that the wall has suddenly become irrelevant.
The shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down.
The Song Swapping Company is now in the top 50 list of most visited sites on the web.
I think that Americans yearn to make our country a better place. I think that's why they're turning out in great, great numbers.
Photo sharing is one of the most popular things people do online. Instagram's 30 million users include celebrities.
Our nation's leaders must stand with America's military caregivers.
There are veterans who need care in every state, and Elizabeth's foundation has moved to close the gap. It's made a vast difference.
We have caregiver fellows representing all the 50 states and Puerto Rico. The Foundation's legacy will be a shift in culture, an America where caregivers are empowered, they're appreciated, they're listened to.
Please welcome CEO of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, Steve Schwab, and the Vice President, Government Sales and Business Strategy at Philips, Kimberly Mingo.
Welcome, everyone, to the 7th Annual National Convening for Veteran Caregivers, co-hosted by the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. I am Steve Schwab, CEO of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and I am thrilled to be here in person. Let's hear it for in person. This is like a television show, my friends online. We've got folks in person, and we've got thousands and thousands of friends, caregivers, family members, and survivors online. So we're so happy to have so many of you virtually. I want to give a big thank you to Kim Mingo and the entire Philips team. Let's hear it for Philips. Returning as our presenting sponsor, Philips has helped make every single one of these national convenings possible, all 7, Kim, and we couldn't be more grateful. This convening's theme is focused on bold steps for the future. Action, policy, and priorities. We're going to be really bold today. How does that sound? Throughout the event, we'll be reflecting on the last year and looking forward to the future. Things have been really tough, not just this past year, but the past couple of years with the pandemic. And we're we're starting to see our way through and starting to see the light, right? So we've got to think about where we were and where we're headed. We're also going to address key policies and priorities that will support a better future for caregivers, for veterans, families, and survivors. That's what this is all about. We'll also announce new initiatives that will change the experience for caregivers and survivors across America, including a partnership between the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, Red Cross, and TAPS. And importantly, we'll provide critical information and updates on the VA's program of comprehensive assistance for family caregivers through informative discussions with Deputy Secretary Remy, Senior Advisor for Family Caregivers and Survivors, Meg Cabot, and Executive Director of the Caregiver Support Program, Dr. Colleen Richardson. Let's hear a round of applause for our friends and partners at the VA. Later today, we will hear special remarks from our North Star, our founder and the chair of our foundation, Senator Elizabeth Dole. Right now, I am honored to kick off the morning with remarks from my friend, Kim Mingo, Vice President of Government Sales and Business Strategy at Philips. Kim is an incredibly dynamic leader who demonstrates Philips' steadfast support of caregivers, veterans, and their families. Kim, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Really great to have you here at this important event. So I'm really happy, and I echo Steve's introduction and welcome, for everyone at this year's convening. While Philips has been a long-time presenting partner at the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, this is my first opportunity to participate. So I am really proud to join you today and look forward to today's activities. I've been with Philips for a brief time, but I've witnessed the partnership between our organizations. And I'm truly excited to build upon the great work that has been done thus far to date. And Philips' collaboration with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation has spanned many years, in part because of the work we do with the VA, who's been a longtime customer and collaborator with Philips for more than 50 years. So we're familiar with this organization, and we're all here because we share that common belief around the mission. And when Senator Dole founded this organization, she aimed to strengthen and empower America's military caregivers by seeking ways to make a significant impact on your lives, their lives. At Philips, our purpose is to improve people's health and well-being through meaningful innovation. What guides our direction for meaningful innovations, it's a core belief. It's a belief that there's always a better way to make life rich, make life better. We cannot achieve our purpose alone, though, which is why Philips seeks partners to drive innovation and affect change. We often say about our partners, together we make life better. And as I reflect on Philips' collaboration with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, I see how these words really ring true. And last night, just being amongst the energy and meeting members of the organization, it just continues to reinforce the importance of what we do and why we do it. So this is why I'm proud to be a part of this foundation's scientific advisory board for a new study by the RAND Corporation on military and veteran caregivers. I'm honored to be able to lend my experience to the research and sit alongside so many leaders on veterans issues, including a number of distinguished individuals from the VA, the Wounded Warrior Project, Booz Allen Hamilton, and other partner organizations. Throughout the years, Philips has helped Elizabeth Dole Foundation uncover the true, often neglected experience and needs of military and veteran caregivers. The Military and Veteran Caregiver Experience Map was the first effort fully devoted to understanding what it's like to be a caregiver. The map highlighted many invaluable insights shared by you, the community of military and veteran caregivers, through conversations, through workshops that were held around the country. And it helped shape the foundation's policy and advocacy efforts, as well as our product innovation. So one of the key learnings from our discussions with all of you is that the needs of caregivers and the demands placed on them from all aspects of life, work, home, family, friends, is constantly evolving. The global pandemic has exacerbated all aspects of life, and it has presented new challenges for everyone, including caregivers. The need to overcome challenges does present tremendous opportunity for innovation and positive change. Telehealth services have become more commonplace, born out of the need to provide health care when hospitals were overcrowded and people were isolated at home. This extended period of isolation also brought mental health into focus, long hidden in the shadows and stigmatized by many. We are finally emphasizing the importance of mental health and building services and solutions to address it. This focus is long overdue and will have broad-reaching benefits to all people. But just as the caregiver community faces unique challenges in everyday life, the responsibilities of caregiving often has its own unique impact on mental health. That's why Phillips and the Elizabeth Dole Foundation decided to take a fresh look, a look at military and veteran caregiver experience map to recognize and validate the mental health and well-being needs of military and veteran caregivers, to identify pathways to accessible care and support. Over the past several months, we've conducted a series of participatory design workshops with a caregiver peer group to talk about what needs to be done to better support caregiver mental health. These workshops led to identification of the unique needs of people across the caregiver journey, whether they were new to being a caregiver or had many years of experience. The insights gained from these conversations led to ideas for real solutions to help caregivers address their mental health. Ideas that we will be sharing with you and others very soon. This new layer emphasizes mental health, wellness, in just the next phase in our collaboration to better support this community, all of you who care for loved ones who have bravely served our country. There are still too many caregivers whose lives are upended to care for those who served, and all too often doing so without support. That's why the annual National Convening is so important to the work of driving change. When we gather together, we not only share our experience as caregivers, but we shine light on new ideas that help the community. Today we celebrate you, the community of caregivers, and I look forward to hearing all of the talented speakers and panelists who have dedicated their lives to the military, veterans and their caregivers. I look forward to listening to your stories, your experiences, and understanding what we could do to help. I look forward to continued collaboration and partnership in addressing caregiver issues and supporting your needs. Because I do believe that together we can make life better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. And I'm going to go off script for just a second because I want to emphasize something that Kim said. 7 years that we've been coming together as a community with our partners at the VA. Philips has made that possible. The VA's been right there with us every step of the way, bringing this community together. And as Kim mentioned, layer by layer, step by step, we're addressing systemic issues, gaps in services support. We're developing tools. That's what this convening is all about. This isn't just a show.
Right.
This isn't just a discussion. It's meant to be action. And Philips products have been informed, the VA's protocols have been informed, and the ways that we support and interact with caregivers have changed. That's what we want to continue to do today, and every year moving forward. That's why you can never go away from supporting this effort. I also want to acknowledge a couple of other important partners in the room. We have our friends from Comcast NBC Universal here, Carol Eggert, Pete Jeffries from AARP, a longtime friend and supporter. We thank Pete from the folks from AARP being a really close partner for these efforts. And then all of our wonderful friends at really, truly one of our most important partners, Wounded Warrior Project. They've been mentioned several times for good reason. They're a big part of everything that we're doing to advance caregiver services and support across the country. And we want to do a big shout out and big thanks to our friends at Wounded Warrior Project. So Kim, you're going to continue to be an incredibly key partner as we move things forward. Yeah. You're new on the scene, which means you've got 7 years to go, come into this convening, and we can't thank you enough for everything that you do.
Thank you.
So 2022 is our 10th anniversary at the foundation, 10 years. And it's amazing to think back on all of the amazing partnerships that we formed with so many people in this room and so many of you who are tuning in today. We've made a transformative impact, and we've done it together. Over the past few years, which I mentioned have been so incredibly hard for caregivers, the foundation has dedicated ourselves to developing new direct services to our hidden heroes. That means deploying services and supports for caregivers all over the country. Programs like our Caregiver Community Connection Series, where we've helped thousands of caregivers virtually through programs and digital workshops on mindfulness and self-care, resume building, professional networking, and accessing mental health care resources. And that was powered by Wounded Warrior Project. And we're continuing that. We're currently providing free respite relief to caregivers in need all across the country. These are backup care, professional caregivers coming into homes of caregivers all across the country, addressing caregivers' #1 requested need, which is respite care, over and over and over again. We know that respite care is the #1 request. And we've been able to do that because of our incredible partnership with CareLinks, by ShareCare, Wounded Warrior Project, AARP, USAA, and so many more. The impact has been tremendous. That program is not going anywhere. You got to help us spread the word. It's been an incredibly meaningful initiative for my team at the foundation. And most recently, with the support of the Bob and Dolores Hope Foundation, we launched a new Hope Fund for Critical Financial Assistance that's providing financial relief to all eras of military and veteran caregivers through grants that aim to put families on a path to financial wellness. And that's not just crisis financial support. It's a path that takes them through training and education and an assessment on employment readiness so that we can ensure that caregivers, veterans, and their families aren't finding themselves right back in a crisis. All of these services reflect our belief that caregivers are essential to veterans' care. That's not just belief. The science says that caregivers are the most important determining factor in the health, wellness, and recovery of a veteran. And caregivers have earned and deserve our nation's gratitude and full support. Let's hear it for all the caregivers in this room and all of those tuning in right now. So it can't be a national convening without ensuring that folks are helping us spread the word about what's going on, right? So if you're joining us in the room or you're joining us live stream, you can participate all throughout the day on social media using hashtag EDFVA Bold Steps. That's hashtag EDFVA Bold Steps. On Twitter, tag the handles at Dole Foundation, at Department of Veterans Affairs, which is at DEPT Vet Affairs, and at Phillips NA. Make sure you tag all those great organizations and partners. And to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, find us at Elizabeth Dole Foundation, at Veterans Affairs, and at Phillips. Tell us what you think, ask questions, share what you learned. This is all about hearing directly from each of you. Kim, thanks. We're going to turn it over now to Leanne.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Please welcome 2022 Dole Caregiver Fellow, Leanne Ledford.
Hi everyone, my name is Leanne Ledford and I am a 2022 Dole Caregiver Fellow from the state of Washington. I met my husband Jared, a Marine Corps combat veteran, when he was home on leave from a deployment to Afghanistan. I slipped into the role of his caregiver when I spent much of my time explaining my husband's struggles, as his ability to communicate was limited due to his sustained injuries, and I followed up on his healthcare appointments to ensure treatment. Jared's injuries started to worsen before he left the Marines, and after a few short years, he had a range of diagnoses, including a traumatic brain injury, functional neurological disorder, seizures, PTSD, sleep disorders, chronic cough and sinusitis due to burn pit exposure, and several injuries to his knees, wrists, and back that made him disabled and unable to work. I look forward to using my role as a Dole Caregiver Fellow to be a leader in my community and share my caregiving story to bring vital attention to the tremendous challenges caregivers across our countries face. I also look forward to driving increased support and action for all caregivers as they care for scars that are both visible and invisible. That is why I'm honored to preview this next segment featuring key VA leaders, Deputy Secretary Donald Remy and Senior Advisor for Caregivers, Families, and Survivors, Meg Cabot. I'm excited to hear latest updates from the VA and what steps the VA has taken to prioritize the needs of caregivers. I look forward to using my platform to bring the voices of caregivers around the country to work alongside key leaders to make sure bold action, policies, and priorities accurately reflect the constant needs and supports of our hidden heroes. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for that warm introduction, Leanne, one of our newest Caregiver Fellows. Let's hear it for Leanne. I am really honored to be here this morning and moderate an important conversation with two wonderful leaders at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Over the course of our conversation, we're going to focus on important policy priorities, concerns from our community, and commit to bold action to move forward together. I'd now like to introduce my friends. First, the Deputy Secretary of VA, Donald Remy. We were sworn in by the Veterans Affairs Secretary, I guess, how long ago was it now?
July last year.
So still a little bit of a newbie, but almost approaching the first full year. I've gotten to know the Deputy Secretary over the last couple of months. He's a man of action, a man of his word, totally committed to the work that we're doing in this room and around the country. And he's been doing incredibly important work focusing on this caregiver program, and I'm really looking forward to discussing your commitment to this community. Mr. Deputy Secretary, thank you for being here this morning.
My pleasure. It's great to be here. Thank you.
I'm also really happy to welcome Meg Cabot, someone I know none of you know. Meg is the Senior Advisor for Families, Caregivers, and Survivors, who is nearly a year and a half into this newly created role at Central Office, advising the Secretary and VA leadership on those important populations and providing critical support for our community. Meg, it's great to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Mr. Deputy Secretary, thank you again for being here today, for your vision at VA, and how you plan to implement that vision over the course of your work at VA. I'd like to start by asking you to share a little bit about your background and tell us about your story. How did you come to work at VA?
Well, first, let me say thank you all for inviting me to be here today for this conversation. I really am excited about this format because it's a format that allows us to talk to one another about the important issues that we all have concern around and the priorities that we share. And thank you to the Elizabeth Dole Foundation for all of your tireless efforts year after year after year for our caregivers, our veterans, their families and survivors, and to Phillips for making this happen. This is just an amazing event, and I'm honored to be part of it. You know, the truth of the matter is, in response to your question, I think I came here naturally. I am a veteran myself. I come from a long line of veterans in my family, my father, my brother, my late father-in-law, my uncles, many family members, and I've always had a passion for trying to make a difference in communities that I'm a part of. And this veteran community is a community that I've been a part of since birth, right? And so when the opportunity arose and the president gave me the nod and the Senate confirmed me, I was excited to be a member of the Department of Veterans Affairs staff. And as I took on the job, I learned about all of the fascinating things that we are doing as an agency to impact the community that we care so much about. And this, our Caregiver Support program with our terrific leadership from Dr. Richardson, who's over there, and our leadership with Meg and the team and the Secretary forging the way has just been an amazing opportunity for me.
Well, you were a captain in the Army, is that right?
Yeah.
And you have come from a really interesting place. If anybody knows anything about sports, which I do, collegiate sports is my favorite. You were the Chief Operating Officer and the Chief Legal Officer at the National Collegiate Athletic Association. You oversaw all the strategic planning, operations, budget management for a $1 billion enterprise. How do you think your work at NCAA, across the stakeholder groups that you worked with, prepared you for what you've been engaged in at VA?
I got to watch a lot of Final Fours. and I never got to fill out any brackets until I left there and came here, and Meg will tell you about how good my bracketology is. Listen, the reality is that the National Collegiate Athletic Association is much like the VA. It's an organization that exists in every state in the union. It's broken up into 3 divisions. We have 3 administrations in VA. We have a community that is focused on local issues and understands national priorities at VA. Had the same thing at the NCAA. You have constituents and stakeholders that have various views about how you should go about achieving things, but they're all aligned around a mission. And that's the same thing that I'm seeing at the VA. And so I think my experience in managing college sports, which is a very complex enterprise, well positioned me and readied me for most of what I experienced at VA. Not everything, but most of what I've experienced at VA, and understanding how to drive consensus around a singular mission and how to achieve that in the most effective, efficient, and thorough fashion.
Let me ask you one question related to what you just said.
No, you can't know my bracket.
No one got the bracket.
But I am an LSU fan, and they didn't even make the tournament.
No, I don't think that. I'd like to see a hand raised. Did anybody have a winning bracket this year? I don't see a single hand raised in this room, because that was impossible with all the Cinderella stories that happened. You know, the VA is a big agency. I know NCAA is complex. What I've come to know of you is that you like to work pretty fast. Has that been a change coming into VA? Are you finding an organization and an environment that allows for that kind of speed on the action side?
Well, you know, thank you for that, Steve, and that perception is accurate and has been true throughout my career. But it's not always the case that you can work as quickly as you'd like to. However, you can dive into issues deeply, understand them, be thorough in your analytics and your understanding, get teammates that share where you're trying to go, and move as quickly as is responsible to get things done. And that's what I've been able to do in prior jobs, and that's what I've been able to do here with Meg and Colleen and the rest of the team at VA.
Well, we're happy that you're here, Mr. Deputy Secretary.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here.
Meg, longtime friend and partner, advocate for this community. You used to oversee the program itself, and now you're back at central office in a newly created position, a position that many of us in the community had advocated for. A little over a year in, how's it going?
Well, you know, I think it's going really well, right? I have the deputy sitting here, taking time out of his really busy schedule to talk about this important topic. And that was an easy ask and quick acceptance. And I think that does speak to having someone in the office of the secretary who's constantly talking about caregivers. I certainly did that in VHA, and when I had the opportunity to speak with senior leaders previously, but it's a lot easier now because I'm in lots of different conversations and am able to make sure that we're all thinking about families across all of the different issues facing VA, our challenges, all of our different constituents that we work with and stakeholders, and making sure that that family thread is being pulled through things. I'd love to share a couple of things that we've done that I'm really proud of. One goal I had was to make sure that we celebrated the month of the military child, which is historically something that DoD really pushes forward and talks a lot about. And I always thought that we should be talking about children of veterans too. We know there are millions of children of veterans, as well as grandparents who serve as the primary caregivers of their grandchildren across our VA system. And so we did a bunch of different things this year. The secretary actually met with some kids of veterans and toured a national park with them. And we did a wonderful event for our social work staff to learn about different partnerships and collaborations that VA has to support kids, so that our clinicians know different resources to share. So Sesame Street and our military kids and Camp Corral, just to share some of those resources so they're spread around. And we also did, on the benefits side, the VBA put on a webinar about the GI Bill and targeted to really made it clear that this was to talk about how you can use your GI Bill benefits for your kids. And to me, that's really what I want people to be thinking about, is to how we make sure that everyone's talking about the family and all of the different benefits and resources available to them.
Well, Meg, you mentioned a couple of accomplishments, which we note, especially around the children. It's a big focus of our work at EDF right now. And for those of you that are watching that have children, there's about 2.5 million caregivers across the country, veteran caregivers, whose children are serving as primary and secondary caregivers. We call them hidden helpers, and we were honored to launch a new coalition to support that growing group of folks providing primary care to parents and other family members with our friends at Wounded Warrior Project. And I know already VA is stepping forward with ways to support families through additional support. But Meg, we talked about the fact that we're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. You and the VA been working closely together on that front for all those 10 years. What are some of the big accomplishments that you think are noteworthy that historically set us up for thinking about how we move forward?
Sure. So one of the things that I'm so thrilled about is that under Dr. Richardson's leadership, we actually now identify and list, they're right there in the medical record of the veteran, the name of the caregiver. We have about 50,000 records. So it's not just our program of comprehensive assistance participants, but also those who participate in our other caregiving activities through our general program. When a clinician opens up a medical record in an appointment with a veteran, either in the hospital or as an outpatient, the name of that family caregiver is listed there. And to me, that is a huge, huge achievement, something that I know people have been talking about for decades in this caregiver space, about how to name that caregiver in the record and make sure it's clear that there is someone who helps that individual at home. So to me, that's been a huge achievement, huge step forward for us to really help our providers know who caregivers are. I'll also talk a little bit about some of the current challenges we're having with the program of comprehensive assistance. We're really looking at those from a holistic perspective. We've got VA senior leaders, VBA senior leaders, folks from the Board of Veterans Appeals, and certainly VHA is leading many of those discussions, but we're engaged at a much higher level than ever before, which means we're going to get better solutions. And I'm very proud of that. I don't think that would have happened 10 years ago. It certainly has. It's only now happening under this secretary, this deputy, and proud of that as well.
Well, Meg, you brought up the program for comprehensive assistance. Mr. Deputy Secretary, you've been on the front lines of a quickly evolving set of activities to assess the program, to step back, to engage groups and organizations like ours and the folks that we work with in a community-wide dialogue about where we go. Can you talk about the action that's happening on that front, how you think things are going and where you see the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to start with saying to everyone that we listen. We hear you. We may not always do everything perfectly, or even the way that you would like to see it have done, but we listen and we understand and we recognize when adjustments need to be made. The truth of the matter is, after Meg and Dr. Richardson, you, Steve, were actually the first person I talked to about the Caregiver Support Program, about the program of comprehensive assistance. And you said some things to me that day that I remember around how we needed to make the program better. It wasn't confrontational, it wasn't adversarial, but it was direct and candid. And with direct, candid input from all of our stakeholders, from all of our constituents, we can get better. And I saw that, and as I went out and I listened to the comments of our force multipliers on the Hill, of veterans, of caregivers directly, reached out and talked to them as I went out into the field, and I met with caregivers who were brought into the program in our medical centers, and asked them, tell me about your experience. What I realized is we had to move quickly. We had to do something to make sure that the program was delivering on its promise. And so we did. And so at the headquarters, Dr. Richardson, Ms. Cabot, and all of our teams got together and we talked about, okay, what can we do to make sure we're delivering on the promise of the program? What adjustments might we need to make in order to do that? And we determined we needed to step back. We needed to look at our regulatory construct. We needed to look at our eligibility criteria and determine whether or not any changes might need to be made. But in the meantime, we needed to make sure that none of our caregivers, none of our veterans were adversely affected by decisions that we were making. And so that's why we said, right now, we are not going to make anybody move out of the program that are legacy applicants or participants or reduce their benefits. We'll keep doing the assessments because if anybody deserves additional benefits, we're going to make sure that they get them. But at the same time, we plan to, and we've already started the process of examining our eligibility criteria to make sure we're getting it right.
Thank you for that. And our friends around the country heard the Deputy Secretary say something really important, that folks right now aren't being removed from the program while this process moves forward. And so the assessments that I know many of you are concerned about are really to see how the VA can help folks in additional ways as we go through this process. And I'm going to put the Deputy Secretary on the spot for a minute because this morning he said something I actually want to share with everyone. I let him know that a lot of the groups and organizations in the space who are concerned and working with the VA on getting this right have been working with us at EDF to make sure that we can find some shared principles about how we move forward as a community. And the Deputy Secretary said to me, you know what, it's okay if you don't agree. We want to hear everything. And I want to call that out because I think the VA gets knocked around a little bit about wanting to hear the good stuff or ignoring the bad stuff. And I heard from the Deputy Secretary this morning, he wants to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, maybe even the bad and the ugly a little bit more. And that's why we were able to have a really direct conversation about PCAFC. But Mr. Deputy Secretary, one of the things we've heard from the community, and I think you and I talked about it when we connected, is the issue of trust and how trust is so key and important for folks, for caregivers to feel good about the program. So for those who are watching, and there are a lot watching, what can you say to them about ensuring that they can trust the VA to move forward in this process the right way?
Well, for everybody in the room and everybody who's watching, I recognize trust is earned. It's not given. And we have to make sure that we demonstrate that we are focused on making this program live up to its promises. And with that demonstration, with our action, with our continued progress, we hope that you all will see that you can trust us to be good caretakers of the caregiver program.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Great, good caretakers of the caregiver program. That's a wonderful comment. Now, PCAFC is getting a lot of attention, as it should, but there are lots of things that VA does for caregivers, and we often say it at EDF, and this is one of the things we're hoping to work with y'all on, is to make sure that when caregivers come to the VA, the PCAFC is seen as one pathway for support, and that folks who apply really understand what the eligibility ground rules are before they go through the process, so that maybe if they don't meet those eligibility requirements, they don't go down that path and set themselves up for disappointment. There's certainly lots of people who have earned and deserve that level of support, but there are other things that VA does for caregivers. And is that something that, I'll address this to both of you, is that something you're thinking about in the scheme of this, is how do we ensure that the holistic level of support that's available is out there?
It absolutely is, and I want Meg to drill down on this, but I also want to share a story with you, because as you were asking the question, it made me think about a trip that I took to Chicago, and a caregiver whom I met there who was caring for her father, who was a double Purple Heart recipient, and who said to me, I didn't know the program existed. I had no awareness that this was here. I was just looking for some information to help me understand how I could take care of my father. And so the caregiver support team there at the medical center gave her the information that she needed, but gave her everything else around what we are doing collectively. When I say we, I mean all of us. What we are doing for our caregiver community. And she said, this not only saved my dad's life, saved my life in understanding all that's available. And then, oh wow, I got a stipend on top of that. I didn't realize I was going to get a stipend. And so it's those kind of stories about the whole of what we're providing in the caregiver space that I think are important. And Meg can walk through, obviously, many of the other things that we're doing.
Sure, I think, so a lot of it is about visibility, and we hear this from caregivers all the time, that if they feel seen and a part of what's going on with the veteran that they love, the veteran who they love, then things are easier for them, they're easier for the veteran. So I mentioned that identification in the medical record. We also have our campaign for inclusive care, which we work closely with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation on. And we have, I'm proud to say, more than 6,000 providers who have taken the online training to really learn how to engage caregivers. This is a skill set that's not taught in medical school, it's not taught in social work school, and to really understand how important that is. And so that's something that we're going to really continue to expand and focus on, is making sure that caregivers, regardless of what programs they're participating in, that the person who is caring for that veteran feels like they're a part of the decision making, a part of the solution for that particular veteran. And we are growing our program of general caregiver services in leaps and bounds. We have identified a national program manager for that particular group to really think about how we expand those services. The programs that we provide are just growing. In-person workshops, in-person services, peer support, programs through our Caregiver Support line. Every day I am learning about a new program that's going on. And some of those are based at a local medical center, but then we also have lots of national programs. And we have programs that we partner with other organizations like the Rosalind Carter Institute and others to really expand so that we can offer all kinds of services to all kinds of caregivers. People who know me know I always talk about how caregiving occurs on a continuum. And even the mom who has to call her son every day just to check on him is doing some caregiving. Is that mom gonna meet the eligibility criteria for some of our programs? No. But she may be very stressed and very anxious, and it may be impacting her life. And so we need to find services for her just as much as we need to find services for the father or the husband who's, doing tube feeding and bathing and all of those kinds of things way up here on the other end of the continuum.
Well, Meg, you mentioned the campaign for inclusive care, and I want to thank our friends from USAA who've made big investments to allow us to really work on culture change across the VA. So we're not really taking anything for granted when it comes to families and caregivers. Thousands of providers, who, by the way, have given us a 96% A+ on this training, are learning how to engage families and caregivers more effectively. It's not easy to train providers, as you probably know. They're really, really busy folks, but we're seeing incredible demand, and we really want to thank the VA for being such an incredible partner on this. And Mr. Deputy Secretary, we hope that VA leadership will continue to commit to helping us, expand this kind of training and culture change among clinicians and physicians across the country so that we can systemically move VA personnel toward emerging trends in medicine on how to ensure that caregivers are included from day one. I'll just share with you before you comment. We're getting incredible attention from the medical community. We've brought together some of the biggest providers in the country on a clinical advisory board for CIC, and they're so excited about the trends that they're seeing at VA. The VA usually sets the trends for American medicine, that they're wanting to replicate what we're doing at VA in private settings all across the country. So VA, again, setting the pace for the rest of America. But I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm hopeful that you'll commit, and certainly Megan, the team behind her, and Dr. Richardson have been unbelievable on this to help us continue to spread this great program across the system.
And I won't steal any thunder from Dr. Richardson. I know she's going to talk to you later, but we agree with you that it's important, and that we have to make sure that we continue to lead the way in this space, and to have the type of training that we have available, and make sure that clinicians understand the challenges and the unique circumstances, and they can pass that on, is something we're committed to.
We appreciate that. I'm going to change topics a minute to a really important subject, which is caregiver and veteran emotional and mental health well-being. We've come out of a really, really rough time for families, and the rates for support for mental and emotional and behavioral health care skyrocketed across the pandemic, and VA did extraordinary work, some with us and a lot of organizations, to make sure we were reaching folks who need it. And as Kim and the folks at Philips mentioned in their opening remarks, we're now really in the midst of some important work, starting to map out what the caregiver's mental and emotional health care needs over a long period of time, really looking at the long-term picture. And we recognize the VA has a limited capacity to support the mental and emotional health care needs of non-veterans, caregivers and family members, but certainly there are things that are happening across the caregiver front that align with those needs. Can you just comment a little bit about that when thinking about the mental and emotional wellness of families and folks who surround the veteran, kind of what strikes you as important and sort of in the future as it comes to VA policy?
Well, and I would echo Kim's remarks earlier, because they were spot on. This is an area that's of critical importance to us, as well as to Philips and to the caregiver community. The recognition of the challenges and the strains that occur to and on a caregiver is something that we all are mindful of, and we have to make sure we provide the resources to those individuals who are in those positions, so that they can be successful, so that their lives can be stable, so that they can provide the type of support that's necessary for those for whom they care. And so clearly this is something we're looking at. We're doing studies around, we're gathering information and making sure that we can provide the best type of information based on what we've learned to those who are in these positions. But Meg, I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. Really such an important question, Steve. And I think when we talk about the caregiver space, it's really two different pieces. There's the piece around the caregiver and their mental health, and the whole concept of when you fly, you put your own oxygen mask on first before you help someone who may need assistance, and how important it is for us to be able to provide mental health services to caregivers, whether that's peer support. I hear often from caregivers that the interactions they have with their caregiver support coordinator literally saved their life. And that's a form of mental health support. It may not be. And then sort of along that same lines, if a caregiver needed really evidence-based treatment, figuring out ways to connect them to those services. So that's one side. But then there's the side around teaching and training and educating the caregiver to help the veteran whom they love and their mental health challenges. And that's a different topic. And so I think in this caregiver space, we have to be really smart and strategic about addressing both of those. And so VA has some great resources that we've put together around specifically suicide prevention, for example. Caregivers there's a toolkit for family members around suicide prevention. We're doing some work around lethal means safety, so as a caregiver, how to have a conversation with the veteran you love about keeping lethal means away if there's a potential mental health crisis going on. We've done some whole health coaching, and I'm definitely not the expert on some of these programs, but please ask your local caregiver support team if you have specific questions. And the whole health coaching is really to help the veteran and the caregiver figure out what it is that they want. Where do they want to get to? Not so much a treatment plan around, physical therapy 2 times a week, but what's important to you? Where do you want to be? Do you want to do you want to go back to work? Do you want to go on a vacation together? What are your big goals in a way that is about life and living and not so much about your physical state?
Mr. Deputy Secretary, there's a lot going on across the veteran front, family, caregiver, survivor front. Moving away from caregivers a little bit, what do you see as because all these issues affect one another, right? What do you see the big issues for you and the secretary and the leadership team as you're looking ahead?
Oh, there are so many. Thank you for the open-ended question. Interestingly, many of you may have read coming in here today an announcement from Senators Tester and Moran on a bipartisan bill that they're going to introduce to deal with the challenges that are presented as a result of toxic exposure. And that's something that we've been working on at least since I arrived, and certainly before I arrived, in trying to make sure that those veterans who were exposed to toxins and as a result have suffered from a variety of illnesses can be well taken care of and receive the benefits that they've earned. And so trying to make sure that we remain focused on that and delivering on that is a key priority. Many of you, I've talked to some of you before about electronic health records and how that can help revolutionize the way that we provide health care for our veterans, making sure that the information and data that's necessary to be in the system to provide that world-class health care remains there, and that our systems are effective and efficient in delivering that and pushing that out into all of our medical center communities and all of our visits is important. We talked about, Meg did a second ago, suicide prevention. We are keenly focused on all of mental health and certainly trying to eliminate the incidence of suicide amongst our veteran community. That's a challenge, one that we recognize and we readily accept, and we're working on combating homelessness. I often say, to say homeless veteran makes no sense to me. Those two words shouldn't be together. There should not be such a thing as a homeless veteran. And so working to try to eliminate homelessness amongst our veteran population is incredibly important as well. I could go on and on and on if you want me to keep talking about our priorities, but we've got so many things that the Secretary and all of our team at VA, not just at VACO, but across the entire enterprise, are focused on trying to, at the end of the day, improve outcomes and access for our vets.
Well, Mr. Deputy Secretary, we recognize that the support for the populations we're talking about today are part of a big picture, part of a holistic focus that the VA has on all the aspects you just outlined. And then we appreciate the fact that you and the Secretary and the President of the Administration have an ongoing commitment to these populations inside of those strategies. And that's evidenced by you being here today and the forward-leaning leadership that you and Meg and Dr. Richardson have had straight through. And I'll end with a question to both of you. We've got thousands tuning in and some folks in the room. What is the message you want to leave the community that we're focused on today?
We are examining moments that matter through our Veteran Experience Office and surveying the community here in the room, the community that's there tuning in and making sure that we understand the needs at every stage, from the point in time that you learn about the program to the point where you're actually exercising the benefits in a way that's beneficial to you and to as caregivers and to veterans. And so we want to make sure that we continue to get this right. And we'll do everything we can, as the Secretary likes to say, we will fight like hell to make sure that that's what we do. And you asked a question earlier about trust. We want to earn your trust, and we want to keep your trust.
Thank you. Meg?
Yeah, I would add a couple of things. One of the things that we're doing as we look at the entire picture around the program of comprehensive assistance is working with VEO to design some specific questions around the program of comprehensive assistance and the program of general caregiver services that will help us really quantify trust in a way that we can't do right now about specifically that program. That program has, was the brainchild of Dr. Davis, who's here today, and continues to really be a cornerstone on which we look for information and feedback from our from our veterans that we serve and their families. And so to be able to do some real targeted surveying around this particular program, these two programs, is going to help us incredibly. It's going to allow us really to understand to a granular level this issue around trust, because to me that's probably the most important piece. We can have all kinds of policies and all kinds of things, but at the end of the day, if we don't have the trust of the people that we're serving, we're just not going to be as successful. And I really want to say to the people who are watching, or maybe the people in this room who don't trust us right now, I really want to thank them for watching and or being here in the room and being willing to hear us out and to work towards being part of the solution, and let us work to earn your trust.
Well, I want to thank you both for ending with that component on trust, because we know that's such a key effort to continue to engage the community. And I know many of you that are tuning in are really interested in many of the subjects we talked about today, and I want to let you know that alongside the Deputy Secretary and the Secretary, we're going to continue to fight like hell on your behalf to make sure that you get the benefits and the services and supports that you need and deserve. We're so thankful to our partners that have been working alongside us to do that, and we're just really thankful for both of you for taking the time to be open, honest, in some ways even vulnerable about how we're moving ahead to make sure that this community receives the respect, the acknowledgement, and the support that it needs. I actually want to mention something really cool. VA is broadcasting this across the waiting rooms of VA facilities all across the country, which is something new in our 7th year. And I want to note, little by little, and that's actually something pretty big, pretty darn big, VA continues to make steps to broaden the ways that it engages with this community and opens up the dialogue by simply airing this across the country. And how many facilities do you all have that probably have waiting rooms? A couple hundred at least?
A couple thousand.
A couple thousand.
Or a little more than 1,000.
Yeah. We're broadening the conversation and dialogue, and this was VA's idea. Mm-hmm. So we want to thank you, Mr. Deputy Secretary, for the commitment you have at the highest levels of leadership at VA. Meg, for continuing to forge new territory in the position that you have at VA, and we'll just continue to work together and stick together on getting things right for this community and staying in close touch.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Senator Dole.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you for continuing and as well as everybody else holding us accountable. I mean, this is something that the Deputy and the Secretary say often. We want to be held accountable. We want to hear when we've got things wrong. So thank you for your ongoing partnership, and we're excited to continue to be a part of this great work.
Thank you. And you heard from Meg. We want to continue to hear from you about what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and what you need so that we can bring that to our friends and partners at the VA. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we depart the stage, I want to thank a really good friend of the foundation, General Mike Linnington, who couldn't be here today. We got to make sure we plan these things around his ability to be here. Wounded Warrior Project has been an incredible partner, so totally committed to everything that we're doing. And Mike wanted to share a special message even though he couldn't be here. So I'll turn it over to Mike.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lieutenant General Retired Mike Linnington, CEO of Wounded Warrior Project. It's a privilege and an honor to speak with you today about our enduring partnership with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. This is a special day. 10 years ago, Senator Elizabeth Dole first called military caregivers America's hidden heroes, not only because our nation had overlooked their service, but because our country knew almost nothing about them. We didn't know how many Americans were even caring for veterans. We didn't know how many were caring for physical wounds, emotional wounds, or both. We didn't have a grasp on how some policies and programs were leaving behind caregivers because of their role in the family, their era of service, or the type of injury their veterans sustained. We didn't have the data to illustrate the scope of this problem. That's why Wounded Warrior Project has been a deeply invested partner of Elizabeth Dole Foundation from day one. Our partnership with Elizabeth Dole Foundation, in concert with our partners at the Department of Veterans Affairs, our leaders here in Washington, D.C., and other veteran service organizations around the country, expands the resources available to America's injured veterans and helps ensure they and their families are thriving long term. The 2014 RAND study was a truly landmark study. Wounded Warrior Project invested in the study to generate high quality and rigorous findings that not only served as a roadmap for Wounded Warrior Project, but it was the go-to guide for every veteran and military serving organization, corporate partner, congressional member, and even the VA itself. The discoveries made in the RAND report drove Elizabeth Dole Foundation to create the Hidden Heroes campaign. They served as the bedrock for new programs built around respite care, financial literacy, skills training, mental and emotional support, and caregiver employment. Wounded Warrior Project is proud of what our partnership has accomplished over this past decade, and we are excited for what is to come. Through our investments, we're committed to discovering new insights by working with RAND again to prioritize reviewing how caregiver well-being in communities, rural, urban, and suburban, impacts, limits, or supports opportunities for them to thrive. Wounded Warrior Project is also taking bold action to support America's caregiver kids and youth, our Hidden Helpers. We are co-chairing the Hidden Helpers Coalition with Elizabeth Dole Foundation and working with First Lady Jill Biden's Joining Forces initiatives. We're also working with more than 60 diverse partners that comprise the Hidden Helpers Coalition to fill in that knowledge, identify resource gaps, and execute innovative solutions. Last November, Wounded Warrior Project announced a new $1.5 million dedicated fund during a Hidden Helpers Coalition event at the White House. Through this investment, we're partnering with best-in-class veterans and military service organizations to provide an extensive network of programs and services for the youngest caregivers of America's wounded warriors. At Wounded Warrior Project, our mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors and their families. But no one organization can meet all their needs. We believe in supporting the entire military veteran ecosystem. That means the entire family unit must be supported for warriors to not only build a new normal, but for them to thrive in their civilian lives. And just as important, for caregivers to live fulfilling lives as well. Wounded Warrior Project is excited to continue to come together and identify bold, innovative solutions for military families around the country. And we're equally proud to continue standing alongside our friends at the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. Congratulations, Elizabeth Dole Foundation, on all your achievements over the past decade. We are excited to see the impact and milestones you have yet to achieve. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Please welcome Director of the Military and Veteran Caregiver Network at the American Red Cross, Melissa Como.
And I'm honored to be here today at the 2022 National Caregiver Convening to highlight and announce a new effort called the Caregiver to Survivor Partnership. The Caregiver to Survivor Partnership was started in response to the Federal Advisory Committee for Veterans, Families, Caregivers, and Survivors, which is chaired by our Senator Elizabeth Dole. The Federal Advisory Committee was struck by the fact that there is an increasing number of military survivors and the fact that we don't completely understand their experiences, both before and after their loved one's death. The committee was most struck by TAPS's survivor illness survey, in which 67% of survivor respondents indicated that the military member or veteran they were grieving required caregiving prior to their death. Additionally, the Red Cross, who's also part of that committee, we were interested in TAPS's survey, which indicated that the increase of military survivors by illness at 31%, or suicide at 27%, more than any other hostile action, which was 4%. That is why this conversation about the caregiver to survivor journey is so important, and why we mustn't shy away from these challenging conversations. The Caregiver to Survivor Partnership worked with the Elizabeth Dole Center of Excellence for Caregiver and Veteran Research at UT Health San Antonio on a comprehensive analysis of bereavement support for military and veteran caregiver survivors. And I really want to thank Dr. Lucy Lycombe and her team for all of their support. Informed, we can better serve the journey of loving, caring, losing, grieving, and living on. Together, we can reduce the potential for even greater and more prolonged suffering, especially for our military survivors that are young or vulnerable. This year's 2022 National Caregiver Convening theme is Bold Steps for the Future. And with that in mind, the Caregiver Survivor Partnership will offer new grief and bereavement training for caregiver survivors, peer supporters, mentors, and professionals through TAPS's Institute for Hope and Healing. This will increase the awareness of the grief process and the experiences of the benefit of bereavement support for our caregiver survivors. Our Military and Veteran Caregiver Network will offer additional education and webinars and virtual engagements in our secure, custom, caregiver-only online community. The Red Cross Hero Care Network will host a resource directory specifically dedicated to caregiver survivors. Our Elizabeth Dole Foundation will offer caregiver providers and supply CEUs that are related to the experience of caregivers who may soon cross that bridge to becoming survivors. This will happen through their wonderful Academy of Inclusive Care. However, we cannot do this alone, and we encourage others listening today, and all of you in the room, to join in this effort. I specifically want to thank the teams at TAPS, the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and my MBCN for their dedication to the caregiver to survivor journey. This issue and topic is extremely important. And now I get the pleasure of introducing a distinguished panel to discuss more about the support in the journey from caregiver to survivor in a section we're calling Roadmap for the Future. So first is our president and founder of TAPS, Bonnie Carroll. Then we have Dr. Quinn Galloway Salazar, founder of In Their Honor. Ann Duff, the director of the Office of Survivor Assistance at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. We have Chad Maxley, Chaplain Program Manager for Family Care and Bereavement in the Office of Chaplain Services at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And last but definitely not least, Laura Taylor, who is the National Program Manager for Advanced Care Planning via group visits, also at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you all so much for being with us today. I'm going to start with a question for my friend Bonnie. Our audience just heard about the announcement of our Caregiver to Survivor Partnership, which includes the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, Red Cross, and TAPS. As the president and founder of TAPS, can you share your perspective on the importance of this partnership?
Oh, Melissa, this is a family. This is a family of all of us coming together to hold on tight, to find a way forward, to find hope and healing, to resource, to connect with each other and know that we are part of a community who understands. We are bound together by the uniqueness of our service to this nation, but the fact that our loved ones step forward to protect and defend democracy. Now we have walked a very difficult journey. We've faced a number of challenges, and over the past decade, TAPS recognized that the surviving family members who were coming to us faced an increasing percentage of loss due to illness and suicide, that their journeys were complicated by secondary losses. It was the loss of identity, it was the loss of connection, it was dealing with isolation. We had an opportunity to recognize this, to learn from our survivors, to create this wonderful network in the military and veteran caregiver community, to find those special resources and supports, to create new peer networks. Senator Elizabeth Dole, you have been a dear friend and a mentor to me throughout my life. I love you so much. And I thank you for allowing us to come alongside the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and create this as one community, to give Lee Woodruff and I as your co-chairs for caregivers and for survivors on the VA Advisory Committee for families, caregivers, and survivors, the opportunity at such a senior level to empower caregiver survivors to have a voice, to be heard, to step out of what we often feel are the shadows now and be recognized. Deputy Secretary Remy, what a powerful statement. And Meg Cabot, to be in this new role at the VA, the Office of Caregivers, Families, and Survivors, it's amazing. Dr. Linda Davis, thank you for your groundbreaking work in creating the Military and Veteran Caregiver Network, for benchmarking best practices, and for leading so much of the change. For all of you who are here in this room, for those of you who are watching, we are a family. We have triumphed, we have overcome, and we have great things ahead, and we will do it together. Melissa, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this extraordinary gathering.
Aren't we lucky to have Thank you, Bonnie. So my next question will be for my new friend, Dr. Quinn Galloway Salazar. And we heard a little bit about the VEO and the moments that matter. Caregiver survivors have shared the moments that matter most to them. Some of these have included the lack of preparation for an ever-changing care role and ongoing competing priorities for caring after loss and during grief. As the physical, emotional, mental, and financial depletion both before and after death, what are you commonly hearing from caregivers out there, and why is this conversation so important?
So first and foremost, how do I follow up with a good comment after Bonnie? So I'll try. A little bit about myself. So I am an Operation Enduring Freedom veteran. I am a spouse to a 26-year retired combat veteran. I'm a mom. I am an end-of-life doula that supports the needs of veterans at the end of their life and also their caregivers. I am also a qualitative researcher. So in the space that I come to you all today, I take my heart work and I take my head work and I combine them. Having the opportunity to journey with veterans in the dying process and their families has taught me how important compassion, how important community, how important collaboration is in all of the work that we do. We're so used to this medical model approach where the dying experience is just for the medical side. But there's a social side to it where our lay community can come alongside of our caregivers and our veterans and be a support. Oftentimes when I'm working with caregivers, one of the things that I hear is, and this is the survivor part, I focus so much on my loved ones dying that I forgot that he or she was still living. The very first time I heard that, it took my breath away. And it caused me to say, how do we enter into this space where we can allow the medical professionals to do their thing, but also come in as a compassionate community and be a support to that caregiver, to that family, to build memories, to properly say goodbye, to sit vigil with that veteran. As a veteran myself, sitting next to someone who is dying, that camaraderie goes a long way. It doesn't matter what conflict I served in, what branch or my rank. That culture that's instilled in us to never leave behind a fallen comrade, and I am my brother and my sister's keeper, allows me to hold that sacred space. We all can hold that sacred space. So what are our caregivers and veterans wanting? They're wanting to feel that sense of connection, that sense of belonging, that sense that I'm not alone. And as you all gather today, whether you're here in person or virtual, there's hope that we can instill in our veterans and our caregivers at the end of life. And I want that hope to be an acronym for you all. Hearing other people's experiences. That's hope. For all the caregivers in this room, you're hope to other caregivers. To all the veterans in the room, you're hope to other veterans. To my panelists, we're hope to the entire system of this work.
Thank you for creating that moment that matters. Wow. So Laura, you have to go after that. My question for you is that survivors of all ages, and we've heard about the VA's new interest and new focus to include our hidden helpers at the youngest of our caregivers, but there are also young survivors. And survivors of all eras are impacted by their care responsibilities, and grief often begins long before the loved one's death. What can families do now? Are there any best practices or tips you have for making that journey just a little bit easier?
Well, fantastic question. And yes, how do I go after the two panelists before me? So one of the things that I think is really important that caregivers can do now is to really have conversations, initiate conversations with the person that you're caring for about what matters to them and about some of these challenging topics, to really have that courage and be bold to really bring up some of the tough subjects so that you have clarity when and if you need to make decisions about their care, when they may not be able to communicate those decisions with you. And that way you'll really be able to make those confidently. The program that I'm currently working in, Advanced Care Planning via group visits, is a new program in VA where we're having these conversations with veterans and caregivers in a group setting. The person who created this program is a VA physician who was inspired by her own experience. Here she is, a physician working in VA. She's a geriatrician. She's had these conversations with her patients, but her own father got ill and wasn't able to communicate his wishes. She didn't know. She had never had a conversation with her father about what his wishes might be and what his preferences were. And even though that has been many years ago, she still wonders and kind of has that uncertainty, did I do the right thing? And in a sense of not having peace, in a way of second guessing herself long after his passing. So we are a newer program in VA, and we are really trying to help support in having these conversations with one another. And I think it's really important. You know, unexpected things can happen at any time. We know that with the pandemic. Relatively healthy people, you know, an illness, an injury, a mental health episode. There's a component of this that also includes mental health episodes. So that would be my answer to the question, is to really think about and find that courage to initiate those conversations about what matters to the person you're caring for, and to make sure to have those with the people that are the most important to that person. And one last point before I give it back to you, Melissa, is when we think about, and the term that we use is advanced care planning, when we think about that, we're not just talking about for the person you're caring for. We're also talking about for you as a caregiver, what is your advanced care plan? If something unexpected were to happen, who would you want to step in and be that caregiver? What would you, what arrangements would you want to have in place?
Who would you definitely not want to have a role in providing that care? All of those really important things that maybe only you know, making sure that others are a part of that plan so that they can really, give you that control of having all those things in place.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. I think it's so important to plan where you can. And of course, in caregiving, you can't plan for everything. I'm going to go back to my Dr. Quinn. And you played a significant role in designing and coordinating the Governor's and Mayor's Challenge to Prevent Suicide. And this was for service members, veterans, caregivers, and their families. So thank you for all including caregivers and family members when we're talking about this subject. Can you speak about that experience and what you've learned as far as suicide prevention efforts for this community?
Absolutely. I love how you said caregivers and families because she knows I'm coming to shout her out. 2019, we were here in DC and we had what's called the Governor's Challenge, no, it was the Mayor's Challenge to Prevent Suicide amongst service members, veterans, and their families, Policy Academy. And it's national experts and states that convene to look at suicide and figure out what are strategic ways that we can prevent suicide. And we're having these great sessions, and we're in a general session like this, and this bold woman with this streak of purple hair stands up and says, I'm paraphrasing, "It's so awesome that you all are talking about service members and veterans and their suicide rates and what we can do to support them, but what about the families? What about the caregivers?" Absolutely. And you could have heard a pin drop. Sean Moore's dedication to bringing that topic to the surface changed the ways that Mayor's Challenges and Governor's Challenge teams did their work to be inclusive of not just the service member and the veteran, but the family. We realize now how important it is to also address the needs of the family because they too are stoic. They wear a mask. They feel a sense of isolation. They feel the weight of caregiving and also the weight of a nation that often doesn't understand their complex lived experiences. So everywhere we go, Sean and I were just in Chicago a few weeks ago, and we hit a general session and we did a 3-hour workshop on caregivers and suicide prevention. This is the work that you all do, right? I'm a vessel. I think we're all just vessels in this space. There was someone that was in the audience who was a lost survivor. Her husband died by suicide. Having a union between Sean and I that brought the head work, heart work, but the lived experience allowed so many in that space to share. So many in that space to say, I'm not alone. So what do we know about suicide prevention and this population, right? Ask the question, have you or a loved one served, right? In your doctor's offices, in your schools. Connectedness. How important is genuine connectedness, authentic connection? Lethal means safety. I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, right? And that's not just saying we're taking away a veteran's weapons. Hey, I'm a veteran also, and I understand that culture. But it's knowing and it's having a safe space to store a weapon when that time calls. Safety planning, care transitions, faith-based initiatives, all of that is suicide prevention. We all have a space where we can add our work, our roles in suicide prevention. We play a part. But I have to say, I will never forget that day in 2019 where many of you all, there was one brave soul that brought you all in collectively and said, don't forget about us.
Thank you. My next question is for you, Ms. Dove. Sometimes all the planning, all the preparing, in fact, for all of us, there is that end. What is available to survivors following the death, and what VA benefits exist for survivors? How can caregivers access these benefits through your office? And if you could talk a little bit about eligibility and understanding where survivor benefits fit in the eligibility scheme of things.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Again, I'm not quite last, but I'll tell you a few things about myself. So I am an Army brat. I'm married to a Coast Guardsman. I served in the Air Force and the Navy, and it just so happens one summer I worked as a lifeguard at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point. So I like to say, you know, I've actually served in 5 of the now 6 services, but I think the Space Force is not going to get me because I'm just too old. So I have a job that I love. I'm happy to wake up every morning because I love assisting survivors. So, my office is designed to be the information experts on information for survivors. You can call us, you can email us. It's a small office, but we know the ins and outs of the benefits, and there is nothing more pleasing to me than to get an email saying, what do I do? My veteran just passed. And to be able to send an email to them with links and all the information they need. And I just get the email back, thank you so much. And a thank you so much email, makes my, week and my month. And, I'm a helper and I love my job. So you ask about benefits. There are many benefits available. Dependency and indemnity compensation, which is, a stipend that you can get once your veteran passes if the death is service connected. There's a myriad of burial benefits to include, burial at a national estate cemetery. There's a small stipend to assist with that. And it all relates to what the veteran's situation was. But when I do a lot of my outreach, what I remind caregivers or simply spouses to do, the VA has this fabulous pamphlet, and it's called Planning Your Legacy. And I meant to bring a copy, but it's in my car. So it's called Planning Your Legacy, and if you Google that or put it in your browser, you will come up with this wonderful 68-page booklet that the VA put together a couple years ago. And the first 8 pages are just an explanation about VA benefits. But page 8 to 18, those 10 pages, are all sorts of questions for you to ask your veteran. Where are your important papers? What would you like your obituary to say? You can even go so far as to say, who do you want your pallbearers to be? But the booklet gives you the opportunity to bring up a somewhat taboo subject in American culture. So if again, I can tell you all about military people. If you say, we've got to fill this out, the VA says we got to fill this out, it gives you this opportunity to ask all these questions. And you talked about what was the intent. So to be able to go through these questions with your veteran, with the person you're caring for, with your parents, and say, what do you think about this? So those 10 pages are fabulous. Then the next 40 pages just talk about the forms you fill out and how to fill them out. But those 10 pages, I recommend you fill those out, stick a copy of that DD-214 in, because that is the golden ticket as far as the VA is concerned. Stick a couple copies in, actually. And put it away where you know where it is, and quite honestly, where perhaps someone else that you trust knows where it is. So that is just a huge help for you as a caregiver, for you as a child dealing with aging parents, get that information filled out, have that discussion, and I think it perhaps will help ease the burden that you have at the death of your loved one. So that's pretty much what I have, but I love that book, and make sure you can get a copy of that.
Yeah, I'm going to double stamp that Plan Your Legacy booklet. Very, very helpful, and really helps start those difficult conversations. Having these conversations long before these end-of-life scenarios makes it easier. And you make sure that your loved one is getting what they want. And you're really processing what that journey might look like, and you have it all right there in the book. And I love the tip about putting your DD-214s in there. Though I don't know a caregiver who doesn't know where the DD-214s are. All right, last but certainly not least, Mr. Chad Maxey, my next question is for you. Caregiver survivors face an overwhelming experience of processing their own bereavement while supporting the grief of others, including at times children and youth, while trying to navigate what benefits are available. Can you share more about bereavement services offered through the VA's Office of Chaplain Services?
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting chaplains to be a part of this panel. We're very grateful to be able to provide care for our veterans and our caregivers, and very grateful for all that I hear that's going on. Sorry. I'm an Army veteran, 30 years, and part of that is a chaplain, other part doing other things, and then been with the VA for 13 years. And I know how important caregivers are for our veterans. Thank you. When I was in the service as a chaplain, our caregivers were essential to the function of our service members. I worked with caregivers every day and was just really thrilled at all that they did for our service members, and each and every day, all the hard work that they do to try to keep a family together when a soldier or sailor, airman, Marine is out, away, everywhere. And so, thank you. It's just astounding what caregivers do, and rarely get any credit for that. And that doesn't change when caregivers or veterans or service members become veterans, because the role just changes a little bit, and a lot of our caregivers then pick up extra roles in providing care for our veterans. And so I just wanted to say thank you for what you do every day, not just a couple days a week or 8 hours in a day, but 24 hours every day of the week. Thank you for what you do. I would not be here if it wasn't for my wife and all of her support. So thank you. So chaplain services. Sorry. So chaplain service, first of all, I want to say that chaplain service is available for everybody. We take care of everybody from every faith or no faith. I've had the most interesting and wonderful conversations with people that had no faith at all and really enjoyed providing support for them during the death of their loved one. We're there for everybody, and unfortunately, I find that many caregivers don't know that support is available, that there is chaplain support available for you as well as for your veteran. We're there for you. And so we begin providing care for end of life well before that happens, because one of the things that we do know is that grief is compounding, and there's all kinds of different loss, and veterans experience many kinds of loss, and caregivers experience many kinds of loss. And so we try to provide care for veterans and caregivers even before end of life. And so if you're struggling with grief and loss in your life, from a family member or from a career or whatever, chaplains are there for you. We want to provide care. We do play a part in advanced care planning, and so a lot of spiritual issues come up during advanced care planning. You know, how does that work with my faith? And so chaplains help caregivers and veterans kind of walk through that. And so we're part of that process. We're part of the palliative care and hospice teams in the medical centers. And so if you're in either a palliative care program or a hospice program, there is a chaplain that's specifically assigned for that to help you begin that process of trying to figure out, and we're there more as a sounding board than anything, to try to help you as caregivers and our veterans to figure out what this is going to look like over the next few months or for a few years, however, whatever course that takes. We also participate in ethics consultations. Usually there's a chaplain, a part of that team. And so because end of life, difficult and very challenging decisions come up. And so chaplains help family members and VA staff members work through those very difficult decisions during the end of life. And then, of course, we are present. If there was one thing I would say about chaplains, and one thing that's drilled into us from day one as a chaplain, is that we need to be present. Present. Be there. Try to be not anxious or overwhelmed in a situation, but just be present and just listen and care for the person. And so that's our goal in that. So, you know, yes, we can do some spiritual and religious types of functions there, but just to be a presence, to provide emotional support and grief support as family members go through that very difficult time in life. And that's available across the VA. We have chaplains in all of our medical centers that provide that care. And then we do follow-up care. We do bereavement follow-up care. We do calls and we send letters. We send out literature about grief and, you know, how to kind of work your way through that. And of course, we provide care for caregivers, family members, survivors as they come in as to the chaplain's office to, you know, help them to work through their grief. You know, I just have to relate this story because it hit me a little while before I came here today. I had a survivor come to me and said, you know, people are telling me that I need to move on with my life, that, you know, I just, you know, need to leave. And I said, well, you know, how long has it been since your veteran has died? Well, it's just been a month. And wow, okay. Wow, that's a little soon, but yeah, okay, that's really not very realistic. It's going to take you a lot longer. How long have you been together with your veteran? We were married for 52 years. And I was very honored and grateful to be able to spend many sessions with this veteran's caregiver. Survivor to, you know, provide support for her as she tried to work through, you know, all of that. Because when you spend that long together with someone, that's going to be a lifelong thing that you're going to deal with. It's not just a few months. So we're there. And then we do that follow-on support, and then memorial ceremonies. We conduct memorial ceremonies to honor our veterans, of course, but also to provide support for our caregivers. And we do that at all of our VA medical centers on a regular basis, depending on the center and how large it is. But every so often we have those. And we invite all the family members to come and provide that. So those are a lot of the things that the chaplains provide. Thank you.
I can tell. I can tell you are a very good chaplain because you feel the weight of this work, and I'm right there with you.
So my next question is going to be for all of you, and I'll start down on your end, Laura, if that's all right. And unfortunately, many caregivers experience shame, isolation, moral injury, and guilt that they have a difficult time talking about. Can you speak to any of this and any helpful insights you might have for our audience?
Wow. Yeah, that's a powerful question with multiple components. Yeah, I think from the theme of this convening's perspective, just being bold, caregivers are one of the most courageous group of people that I've ever met. So really using some of that courage to ask for help if you need it, to reach out to someone, even if you aren't, we're also kind of strong, we don't want to ask for help. So if you don't want to use the term help, just calling someone when you're feeling down, I think, or when the weight is a little too much to bear, to lean on one another and your resources, I think would be my biggest piece of advice.
Very good. So Chad, I'm going to ask you the same question.
So I thought a little bit about this, and I'm so grateful that I had the privilege and honor of meeting our fellows over there, Kristen and Iliano. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with me. And it also went to the point that I'm going to bring up. I think the chaplain services do a really good job within the medical centers and around the medical center areas. Where we need to work more at is more in the outpatient care and the communities. And so actually we're already working on that, but we are really working to get more spiritual care, more chaplain services out into the outpatient arena and into the communities, because we can't do it by ourselves. As you've seen this morning, all of us here have to do that together. And we recognize the needs to connect with other clergy persons from other faiths to be able to provide, care out in the community as well. So for us, that's our bold move, is to push out into the communities to make sure and provide care there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anne, do you have any thoughts?
I just have a quick thought. I think this group is such, it's reaching out to people like you. TAPS is such a great organization with what they do. But, find someone like you. There's so many people who want to help, but you do have to ask them. And like what Deputy Undersecretary Remy said, let the VA know how we can help. Again, he promised that we couldn't do everything, but let us know and we'll do our best that we can within the constraints that we have. But reach out, take advantage of groups like this and TAPS and all those people who want to help and have similar experiences.
Great. Dr. Quinn?
Continue to tell your stories. Tell your stories. When you tell your stories, you're bringing so much of the heart to this space. It allows us to do a better job in providing care. Knowing what your past was like, knowing what your present is like, helps to ensure we set up mechanisms and resources for a future.
I love it. And Bonnie?
Well, thank you for that. And I wanted to speak from the survivor perspective and reframe grief for a moment. We only grieve because we love. And so many look at grief as just the pain of the death and the separation. And they think if we see someone, or I wish we could take a pill or put a bandage on it. But it isn't that simple. When our loved one has physically died, we don't stop loving them. That love transcends the physical connection. That love lives on. And as you said, we become the living legacies of our loved ones. and we continue to tell their stories. And in that way, they are eternal.
What a powerful panel today. I'm holding back tears. And I'm going to close this out with just my extreme gratitude for all of the caregiver survivors who shared and informed the work of the Caregiver to Survivor Partnership. Many of them are our close friends and our family. And we have two very special caregiver survivors that I need to specifically thank. And one of them is Dr. Linda Davis for her inspirational leadership. And the other is our dear Senator Elizabeth Dole. You heard from our panel today, this is a very heavy topic that we've only touched the surface of. But there is support, there is understanding, there are communities that are compassionate and caring, and there is a bridge from that caregiver to survivor role, and we will all walk it one day, and we will walk it together. Thank you. Love you so much.
It's from our wedding. They're so ridiculous. That big heart that he has is really what I fell in love with. His first doctor's appointment was, I believe, December 20th with the first foot specialist, and his amputations happened February 26th, 2019. It happened very quickly. It's the last time that he had independence. He would tell me several times, you should just run. Like, you deserve somebody who's healthier. But I didn't. I wouldn't.
You really wouldn't know there was anything wrong with him. He just appears to be a normal veteran. Most of his injuries are invisible wounds. He has a mild TBI that does cause memory loss. He has PTSD, and then he has some physical injuries to his lower back and his feet. When we met each other in 2015, that friendship and that bond that we created to support one another really helped us to save each other's lives.
So Dad is an amazing father. He's a service-disabled veteran from the United States Air Force, and he's just been a great father. You know, being born in the 1930s, it was very much a segregated world in America. Dad was one of the first to go down into the South, into New Orleans, and play in the Sugar Bowl. Then he came back and he played and he scored a touchdown against Penn State. Once my mother passed in 2016, then that was the real eye-opening experience. Caregiving is no joke hard. It is seriously hard, and it puts a lot of stress on families.
I help Jason with putting on his prosthetics. I help him with dressing. I help him with grooming. I help prepare meals. I help keep the house clean. I drive him to appointments. I attend medical appointments. You know, it's those little things that you don't even think about when you're doing them.
It wasn't until I was really interacting with other caregivers that I realized that that's what I was doing.
I realized I was a caregiver when just feeling overwhelmed, from laundry to doing medications to scheduling his doctor's appointments.
The Elizabeth Dole Foundation says if you provide medication, if you're offering emotional support, environmental safety support, activities of daily living, you are a caregiver. It was like a weight was kind of lifted off my shoulders. I didn't feel alone anymore.
Thankfully for the Dole Foundation, I was able to find a whole nother group of people and felt a belonging.
The amount of knowledge that is shared between all of us, I've learned so much just from being a part of this, you know, as well as what I've shared to help others learn in their journey.
I feel like my caregiving is similar to others. We're all on the same road, even though the view might look different. I am a caregiver.
I am a caregiver.
I am a caregiver.
Join us at hiddenheroes.org.
Please welcome Dole Fellows Alumni President, Brian Vines.
Good morning. I'm Brian Vines, and I'm very proud to be the president of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation Alumni Association, and very proud to be the caregiver for my veteran wife, Natalie. 10 years ago, Senator Elizabeth Dole made a promise. Her husband, Senator Bob Dole, had spent 11 months in the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, and she witnessed firsthand the weight, the responsibilities, the sacrifices of our military and veteran caregivers. And once he was discharged, she made a vow to put her time and her energy behind this cause to find a fix. Over the last decade, this foundation has had some impressive progress. Transformational reforms, historic legislation, reaching caregivers with resources, putting together hundreds of coalition partners, and reaching out and touching the lives of countless military and veteran caregivers that were in darkness until they found the light of this foundation. To do this, it took a tremendous leader, someone with the credibility, the determination, and political savvy to accomplish it. Senator Dole saw this crisis, and she set out to fix it. I am honored to welcome the former Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Transportation, President of the American Red Cross, former United States Senator, our leader and our beloved founder, Senator Elizabeth Dole.
Oh my, thank you all so much. Thank you. Oh, God bless you. Thank you all. Brian, thank you so much for that very kind introduction, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that wonderful, warm welcome. We're so fortunate, Brian, that you are a part of our foundation family. And to everyone with us here in Washington and to all of you watching from across the country, thank you for joining us. We established this national convening 7 years ago, as you know, and it remains a driving force behind the incredible progress we're making together for America's hidden heroes. We've been so fortunate to have the Department of Veterans Affairs as our co-host from the very beginning. This event is just one highlight of an extraordinary year-round partnership between our foundation and the VA, from our campaign for inclusive care to our respite relief program, the Hidden Helpers Initiative, evidence-based research, and so much more. The VA is engaged, active, and committed to keeping caregivers at the top of their agenda. I'm so grateful for the leadership of Secretary Dennis McDonough, Deputy Secretary Donald Remy, who did a marvelous job this morning, didn't he? And of course, our long-term friend, Meg Cabot. And I extend my deepest thanks to another faithful and generous partner from day one, our friends at Philips. Kimberly, Mingo, to you and the entire Philips team, thank you for making this event possible yet again. Thank you, yes. And thank you for devoting your organization's talent to studying and strengthening our caregivers' mental health. That's an issue that concerns me greatly, and I'm reassured that you are taking it on. Traditionally, I use my remarks during our convening to recap what our community has accomplished over the past year. However, with the shift of this event, from the fall to the spring, it's only been about 6 months since we last came together. At first, I wondered if enough progress had been made to fill an entire speech. But when I sat down to take account of everything this community has achieved just since October, the number of steps and leaps forward that we've made, I was simply astounded. Just weeks after our last convening, First Lady Jill Biden invited our foundation and our partners at Wounded Warrior Project to unveil at the White House the first ever study of military caregiver kids, our hidden helpers. We announced dozens of commitments made by our Hidden Helpers Coalition to respond to the study's alarming findings. The Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and the First Lady all stood on that stage with us, affirming that the Biden administration, led by Dr. Biden's joining forces, would help us come to the rescue of these extraordinary yet vulnerable young people. This spring, we worked with leaders in Congress to introduce bipartisan legislation that will improve how the VA assesses caregivers, enrolls them into support programs, provides them home-based community services, and much more. I'm humbled that they named this legislation the Elizabeth Dole Act. However, like all bills, it's not about the name, but what it will accomplish. And this is certainly one piece of legislation that we need to pass. As Steve mentioned this morning, our foundation also launched the Hope Fund for critical financial assistance with the support of the Bob and Dolores Hope Foundation. This fund has already begun pulling caregivers back from the brink of hunger, homelessness, and hardship. And our respite relief program, launched with the support of Care Links by Share Care and Wounded Warrior Project, has reached an incredible milestone. In the fall, I announced that this program had provided more than $500,000 worth of professional care services at absolutely no cost to caregiver families. Today, I'm so pleased to share that in the last 6 months, we've doubled that figure to more than $1 million of free professional care. And that's not all. That number will continue to grow by leaps and bounds, because today we're announcing we are expanding the program. Requests for in-home assistance can soon be submitted by veterans caring for a civilian, caregivers of surviving military spouses, and veterans who need professional care support around their home. Yes. I'd like to recognize Steve Schwab and our creative, dedicated, and tireless staff for conceiving, developing, and delivering these critical services to our hidden heroes and their families with the help of our partners. Yes, let's do it again. As you all know, caregivers still desperately need our support. Our foundation just announced the 2022 class of Dole Caregiver Fellows. They are another amazing group of caregivers volunteering to share their stories and their precious time for the benefit of their peers. Would our Dole Fellows in the room please stand and be recognized? Let's give them a big round of applause. Wonderful. Great. One of our new fellows, Leanne Ledford, who you heard from earlier today, and you know that she cares for her husband, Jared. As a young woman, Leanne was destined to make a difference in this world. She was in the Young Marines, had completed college, and started her career in policy and advocacy. However, her husband's post-traumatic stress, the seizures, migraines, and traumatic brain injury eventually robbed him of his ability to work. The care he required from Leanne took her out of the workforce too. She pieced together contract positions, but as they waited for his benefits to come through, they became homeless. Leanne was forced to liquidate their retirement and moved their family into a tiny trailer in her father's backyard. When we asked another new fellow, Elisa Glass, what our country needs to know about military caregivers, she answered with a plea, saying, they need to know that we exist, and we need your support. Ladies and gentlemen, military caregivers have carried such a heavy load on behalf of our nation. And recently, I've worried about what they see when they look to the country they so faithfully serve, because the voices of cynicism and divisiveness seem to be drowning out the voices of compassion, honesty, unity, and hope. At times, we seem to need a reminder of the types of leaders Dr. Martin Luther King once called for. Leaders of wise judgment and sound integrity. Leaders not in love with money, but in love with justice. Leaders not in love with publicity, but in love with humanity. And truly, shouldn't we expect such character traits not only from our leaders, but from ourselves? In this democracy, we all have a role to play, don't we? A role that demands selflessness, empathy, and humility. Our country's founding scripture boldly declared that the citizens of this nation mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We knew the grand experiment of our democracy depended on such shared sacrifice, and it does today as much as it did then. But are we living up to that creed, to the spirit and the values that first made America a shining beacon of freedom and democracy? I have to admit, it's sometimes hard to see the great beacon light of America through the haze of divisiveness. But I do have faith that it still shines. And one of the constant reminders of its brightness is this community. It is each of you. When our foundation first took on its mission 10 years ago, we did not align with any particular sector, team, or political party. We never sided with these folks at the expense of working with those folks. Rather, we worked with anyone with a compassionate heart who recognized what our nation owed our hidden heroes. And that has made all the difference. All the difference. Yes. Over the last decade, we've found that benevolence and humanity spring from all sides, and they are powerful unifiers, capable of bringing together people around a cause larger than all of us. So let's keep that spirit alive. Let's continue to work together to transform the way America cares for its caregivers. Let's ensure America's hidden heroes and hidden helpers feel the support and security of a coalition united around their cause. And let's inspire the nation to join us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Booz Allen Hamilton, Dr. Executive Vice President at Booz Allen Hamilton, Dr. Kevin Vigilante.
Good morning, or maybe this afternoon. I'm not quite sure yet, but thank you so much. It is an absolute privilege to be here at the 7th Annual Caregiving Convening. And, this is the 10th anniversary of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. I mean, it is hard to believe that 11 years ago, this foundation didn't exist, and that what you've accomplished in the last 10 years, you've packed in a lifetime of achievement in 10 years. So thank you, Senator Dole, for having the vision for this organization and for sustaining that vision and converting it into action. And I got to say one more thing that I didn't plan to say. The words you just offered about unity, about what it means to be an American, that it's what General Milley said last night, that it's about an idea that brings us all together. It doesn't matter what race we are, what religion we are, rich, poor, sexual identity. It is because we participate in the idea of America that makes people sacrifice what they sacrifice, as General Milley said. Share your vision for what this organization represents, because it truly represents the best in America and bringing together people under the banner of that idea. And thank you for being a spokesman for that. Thank you. We need it more than ever. So I'm a physician, and as a physician, I spent about 20 years taking care of patients, many of them veterans at the West Haven VA in Connecticut. And so I got to witness firsthand the heroism of our caregivers, caring for veterans during difficult nights, getting kids out the door in the morning, then off to their own jobs, often with little or no sleep. But worst of all, or most difficult of all, often feeling alone in the fight. Experiencing that dark night of the soul at 4 a.m. in the morning, alone with their loved one, and no one else to turn to. Well, the Dole Foundation has changed that. No longer do caregivers have to feel alone in the fight, because the Dole Foundation has become their voice and their rock of support. It has provided the light that enables them to see the hope they need. And so now the next phase is to think about the future, about the long term, and about the importance of aging in place. We want to do everything we can to prevent or avoid the institutionalization of our veterans. However, we also need to keep our caregivers physically and emotionally healthy so they can provide the support that is needed for the entire care journey. To lead that conversation, I'd like to introduce Dr. Colleen Richardson, the Executive Director of VA Caregiver Support Program, who will moderate a panel discussion prioritizing healthy caregivers, a vital component of aging in place. Dr. Richardson, thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon. I too am still trying to get up to speed on what time it is with all the travel going on. Thank you for this opportunity to be here today and this morning and this afternoon with all of you. I'd like to take just a moment and introduce the panelists, the guests that we have this morning. I'm Dr. Colleen Richardson. I am a clinical psychologist by training. I am an Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. I am married to a veteran who I've cared for the last 12 years as well, so it is an honor to be here and be with all of you this morning and this afternoon. So I'll start with Mr. Dan Shep. Sir, good morning, good afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. Richardson. I'm Daniel Sheps. I'm the Director of Purchased Long-Term Services and Supports in the Office of Geriatrics and Extended Care. Those are services that VA buys, it purchases from the private sector on behalf of veterans, ranging everything from nursing home to respite care at home.
Great, welcome, Dan. Thanks so much. Mr. Prince Taylor, good afternoon, sir.
Thank you. How are you, Colleen? Yes, my name is Prince Taylor. I am the Deputy Director for the VA Center for Development and Civic Engagement. Many of you probably still call it voluntary service. And I also sort of help give some oversight to our volunteer program, Compassionate Contact Corps.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bob Stephen.
Hi, thank you, Doctor. I'm Bob Stephen with the AARP, and my role there is I lead our family caregiving activities. And for those of you who aren't aware of what we're doing, AARP was founded by a family caregiver some 65 years ago. And it's been a priority for us, and we certainly recognize the importance and the unique role that military and veteran family caregivers play, and it's been a privilege for us to work with both the VA and the Elizabeth Dole Foundation.
Wonderful, thank you. Miss Angelina Taylor.
Hello, I'm Angelina Taylor. I am the daughter of a Vietnam-era Marine Corps veteran, and I am a 2021 Dole Fellow from Michigan.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Miss Leah Christensen.
Hi, everyone. Leah Christensen, National Program Manager for the Program of General Caregiver Support Services at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm a social worker by training, and I am also the daughter of a Vietnam veteran.
Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. So we know it is so important. There's so many things that are important to caregivers and the roles that you do, but one of the things that we find is the most important, we found this with the RAND survey, is your health. We have to take care of you so that you can, in turn around and take care of your veteran. And so we want to spend some time with you guys here this afternoon talking about some of those things, how to prioritize those caregiving needs for you. And we also want to talk a little bit about aging in place, which is another thing that we are starting to see with the population of veterans that we have today. And so we're going to lean on our panelists here to share all the great information that's out there for resources that are available to you as caregivers. And again, we want to prioritize and spend some time talking about your health here this morning. So I tell my team this all the time. We have to connect to the mission. You have to. I know what my why is. I know why I connect to the mission. I'm married to a Marine. I've served myself. It's easy for me. I know why I'm here. But I love to ask my team all the time, what is your why? Why are you here? Why do you choose taking care of caregivers? And so I want to start with Miss Taylor this morning because she is a why. And we'd love to hear your story. And if you could share with us a little bit about your caregiving experience. You mentioned that you are a caregiver to your father, who is a Vietnam Marine Corps. Can I get a hoorah in the house for the Marines today? Caregiver. So share with us a little bit about your caregiving experience.
Of course. I have been caregiving for my father, Benjamin, for the last 6 years, a little over the last 6 years. And I started when I was 28 years old, just fresh into starting my master's degree program, you know, living life as a young adult. And then my father suffered a stroke, which of course was unexpected. Luckily, I recognized the signs of a stroke and found him at home, was able to get him care immediately, and from there, our lives were forever changed. He's immobilized on the right side of his body, so he needs use of an electric wheelchair, lots of physical therapy, occupational therapy. But one of the challenges from starting this journey was not having that support and that, you know, level of understanding of what you need and what it means to be a caregiver. I essentially got tossed into the role. He spent a few months, you know, recovering after the hospital stay in a nursing facility, and they're just like, okay, take him home. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? So there's not a lot of training that's provided to you when you bring your loved one home. And I just kind of had to learn as I went. It was definitely a roller coaster experience over the last few years. I was working, I lost my job at the end of my FMLA coverage, which, you know, that's not something you expect. So trying to navigate career as a young adult, finishing education, which I did fortunately finish my master's degree on time. It was a challenge being able to, continue my program while taking care of Dad, but I made it happen. And it's just been an eye-opening experience being able to meet and connect with other caregivers and, learn of which programs are out there to support us and be able to advocate for other caregivers.
You said a couple things that just resonate with me so much. You said, I'm juggling a gazillion things. How many caregivers in this room can relate to that? Amen, right? You're young, trying to figure out who you were as a person, and now navigating a brand new role. How many of you can relate to that? Many people in this room. You're such a testimony to what caregivers are. The epitome of the backbone of veterans, their families, the epitome. And so I want to commend you and all of you. You are unsung heroes in so many ways. And to finish a master's degree and navigate life, it is not easy. It's a complicated thing. So I'm proud of you. I think that is just remarkable.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? What was the biggest challenge? Because, you named like a million things that you did, but what did you do to take care of you in the midst of all that? Because I want to talk about prioritizing your health. And maybe this will be a testimony for some people in this room, because we're so good at taking care of everybody else, and then we're last on that continuum, as Meg talked about earlier. But we need to kind of move closer to the continuum of caring for ourselves.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Like I said, it has not been easy. Therapy.
Yes. Yes.
Lots of battles with depression.
Can I get a show of hands? How many caregivers in this room have battled with depression? So many, right? We're not isolated. It is a common thing. And as Ms. Taylor is talking about this, I can see the eyes and the hearts in the room, and mine is breaking too, because it's so tough what you guys do. So Ms. Taylor, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for destigmatizing the need for mental health care for our caregivers. Thank you.
Of course. I just want to add to, yes, lots of therapy, making sure that, you're taking care of your mental health for sure. It's been, oh my gosh, an uphill battle, of course. But also making sure you're doing other things for self-care, making sure that you're not losing sight of who you are, because it's so easy to, lose your identity as a person. Connect to the things that you love to do. Make sure that you're, taking care of your you time away from, your identity as a caregiver. There are respite services out there. A lot of us don't take advantage of it as we should or would like to, or our loved ones are more comfortable with us taking care of everything. But make sure you're taking that time for yourself. I take advantage of it as much as I can. And I was a traveler before, my dad had his stroke and everything, and I continue to travel, as self-care. So he'll spend a good few days or a week in respite care, and, I'll explore the world and make sure, I'm changing my environment and getting to explore things.
Good for you. Good for you. And we're going to talk more about respite care today, because I want all of you to hear more about respite care and taking advantage of respite care that the VA offers, that the Elizabeth Dole Foundation has partnered with CareLinks to offer for free. You heard Steve say that earlier, for free. And then there was something else you mentioned, and then I'm going to scoot to Leah Christensen, because you mentioned there weren't a lot of things that you were aware of. And so, Leah, can you talk to everybody? You've been with the Caregiver Support Program at VA now for
its inception for almost 10 years now. And can you share a little bit about the two programs that we have within VA and what people can utilize for services and how do they get them so that they're aware of things that Angelina wasn't aware of originally?
Yes, of course. So we have two programs within the Caregiver Support Program, the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, which is the program with the benefit package to include the stipend and health insurance and enhanced respite care. And then we also have the Program of General Caregiver Support Services. And that program really does offer things like skills training, such as coaching. If you have a veteran with a new diagnosis, we have new tools that you can learn in that care, for that care. And we also, I think the other piece of that is really looking at how are you caring for you. So it's how do you care for the veteran, but how do you also care for you? And we have caregiver support teams at every VA. So for those of you who are maybe listening at VA in the waiting room, please find your caregiver support team. Please go online if you're here listening virtually or in the room, and find that team that's there for you. We so often hear from caregivers, that's their link, that's their lifeline. They can just call the caregiver support team and know there's a listening ear on the other hand, someone who can connect them with the resources and the services both at VA and in the community, someone who can coach around what is important to you, what matters to you right now, because we want to bring those things back for the caregiver. Being a caregiver is a big piece of your journey, and there's other pieces of you as well. And so how do we help those to flourish? Meg talked earlier about our whole health coaching. We call it caregiver health and well-being coaching because we want to focus on your health and well-being as a caregiver. So that coach will help meet with you, talk about what's important, what steps you can take to reach those goals. If that goal is to travel, great, let's figure out how to make that happen. But if that goal is, you know what, I need just 10 minutes every day built in so I can go and do some deep breathing and pray or meditate or whatever it is that works to help re-energize you, how can we make sure that we make that happen for you? So it's the little things and the big things that are so important each day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Leah. The other thing I will add on to that is we do offer peer-to-peer support mentoring. Sometimes it's really helpful. I know in the veteran community, as soon as I see another Marine or Navy person, I'm immediately hooked to that person. I walk right up. And as caregivers, I would imagine the same is for you. As soon as you see another caregiver in the room or you're familiar with somebody who's also caregiving, there's an immediate connection. So we have that through our peer-to-peer support mentoring, and we find that to be really helpful for our caregivers as well. So the other thing that I wanted to switch over to talk with you, Dan, a little bit about is aging in place. We're starting to see that more and more where our veterans want to age in their home instead of going to long-term care or nursing care. Of course, when it's appropriate to do so, because it's not always appropriate for every veteran to age in their home. But could you talk to the audience a little bit about what we have for services so that veterans, if appropriately, can age in place? How do they go about doing that? What services are available to them to take advantage of, et cetera?
Certainly. And you're right, most veterans, like most seniors and disabled adults and disabled children, they want to receive care at home. 90% of seniors want to receive their care at home. They do not want to go to an assisted living. They do not want to go to a nursing home. And VA is very supportive of that as long as that care can be delivered safely in an environment that is safe. It's the right thing to do. It's clearly what veterans and caregivers want. And when you look into the out years, it's very important that VA continue to use its resources for nursing home care for veterans who actually and truly need to be in a nursing home. So we want to support caregivers in delivering care at home for as long as we can. And this is another important point I think there's no system, certainly not VA, but there's not a state system either, which is going to provide for all the care needs that a caregiver, a veteran and a caregiver have. It's just not part of what the public sector does. AARP has this fabulous information, a report you publish every year, that talk about the billions and billions of dollars uncompensated that family caregivers provide that's keeping this system afloat. So VA or a state system can supplement and supplement with some gusto, some robustness on what the family and what the friends provide, but that core is always going to be that family caregiver. And so that's where we are trying to help. That's what we're trying to assist. We have a number of programs that do that. They are all listed on our website, va.gov/geriatrics. And it's a nifty page. It won't overwhelm you, but I'm really happy with how it's looked the last year or so. We have a staff member, Sherry Duluth, who just does a brilliant job with that. In any event, there are also tools there. One of the things that we talk about is having a plan for how you want your services delivered. We're trying to shift how we assign and deliver home and community-based services. And here we're primarily talking about home health aid, adult day health care, home respite, and veteran-directed care, which is our self-directed care program, which is quite different than the other three and a lot more flexible than the agency-based programs. Two other things you should be really aware of. If you're the veteran, your family member, person you're caring for, if you're not there, and if they need an LPN or an RN to deliver that care because of the state you live in, you can't have an aide do it. We do provide, skilled respite care, and that's an important piece. And don't forget that we provide inpatient respite as well. That's part of the medical benefits package. We don't talk about that much, and there are both limitations to that, and they're kind of a minimum to what we can provide as well at any one time. But what we're trying to do, and what other systems are trying to do, is offer the veteran and caregiver more choice and control over the services they get and when they get them. There are limitations when we're working with agencies. We work with 10,000 agencies for home care, and another 1,500 adult day centers. So, there's a great deal going on there, but you want to offer more choice and control, like we do in the veteran-directed program. And some of the findings and what we've learned from veteran-directed, we're shifting over to the agency services. So when you come to VA in the next 6 months, if you're currently receiving care in one of our personal care services programs, we're going to talk to you about how would you like, these are your hours, let's say it's 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week. How would you, and right now here's how they're divvied up. Does that work for you? Or can we shift them around? Do you want to do more daycare? Do you want to move some of those, do you want to add some respite hours? not do daycare as often. We're trying to give you more flexibility in designing your own program to meet your own needs.
So Dan, what I hear you saying is that essentially we're trying to design plans and programs for people to meet their individual specific needs, because every caregiver is unique and has very unique and different needs. So thank you for that. That's exactly what we're looking for, and I think that's what everybody wants to have, is a plan unique to themselves. I've heard respite a couple times, so I'm wondering if we could touch with you, Bob, in the AARP community and what you guys are doing around respite. And then Prince, I want to jump over to you because I know you've got some stuff I want to touch on real quick as well, and we're short on time, and this is such great information. So Bob, tell us a little bit about what AARP is doing specifically around respite for our caregivers.
Sure. I would say I think a lot of my fellow panelists have kind of touched on some of the key things. But when we look at, we're talking to caregivers of all generations and ages, and I think for us, one of the big things is we definitely see the value there. But we're often struck when we talk to family caregivers by the number who aren't taking advantage of respite, or they're very resistant to it. When you look at just even the numbers. Not even, I think 40% of caregivers that we've talked to, and we talked to many, say that they think respite would be beneficial to them. But that really, I think, is reflecting a lot of the resistance that comes in there. Because when we actually talk about what's behind that, and when I say 40% are interested, many fewer, probably around 15%, are actually taking advantage in the broader population. And really comes down to, if I had to paraphrase the discussion, it usually goes with my number one priority is my loved one. And I'm not going to deviate from that. And if I take a break, that's admitting that I can't do this, or that if I feel selfish. And yet we know from more data, because we do quite a bit of research at AARP, but we know that family caregivers, as we've talked about here, more likely to say your health is poor. More likely, I think 40% of family caregivers say that they've had that negative social or emotional impact. They're more likely to face the challenges of depression or anxiety. And so that's where the respite comes into play, particularly when you think for the audience we're talking about here, that everything I just said is much worse when you're younger. If you're a younger family caregiver, if you're living with the person you're caring for. And so respite gives you that opportunity to kind of step away, recharge, if you can take the travel, to kind of mentally reconnect with your social network so that you're not going to be as isolated, and take time for your health. I think I've cited a lot of data, but I think the most powerful things are the stories that we hear. And one of the caregivers that we've talked to recently said, from her perspective, caring for her father means that she's caring for herself too.
Yeah.
And that I think sums it up.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So Prince, I'm wondering, I saw hands go up and folks in this room, and I know people online, there's a lot of social isolation that occurs with caregiving sometimes. And I'm wondering if you could talk about your award-winning program, Compassionate Contact Core. And how social determinants of health kind of impact what you guys do with that program. And if you can talk to the audience a little bit about that and the impact on social isolation, I think that would be really great for our caregivers to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I want to do, if it's okay, is bring up something that I keep hearing alluded to, but we haven't expressly said it. You can't really decouple isolation and loneliness. And a lot of people feel stigmatized about loneliness because they think that it means that they don't love their veteran. That's not what it means. It just means that, there's different kinds of loneliness. So you can be completely happily married and still experience loneliness. And the reason why that's important for you to hear is because, as AARP just said, it can lead to things such as dementia, heart disease, strokes, depression, suicidal ideations, and also substance abuse. And so doctors, and I'm telling their business, doctors don't really know how to deal with loneliness because it's not clinical. And I'll get to Compassionate Contact Core in just a second. It's not clinical, so for them, they don't do anything, or they try to give you medication that you don't necessarily need. So it's like the chicken or the egg. And my point of view is, if we don't know which comes first, stop treating it like we do. And let's start doing something about loneliness and destigmatize that before we start talking about depression and all of these other things that come from it. So Compassionate Contact Core. Compassionate Contact Core is a program that we accidentally started by trying to help caregivers. We had an in-home visitor program, and the pandemic happened. And I said, stop sending high-risk people to visit other high-risk people. And my coordinators said to me, they said, we have to do something because there's still a need there. And so we created a virtual program. And what that does is it allows us to send trained volunteers, or we train volunteers to make phone and video calls to veterans. And that's important because that gives our caregivers a lot more respite than they normally would have. And we also have another program that we're bringing back called the Voluntary Home Visitor Program, where you would have at least an hour a week that you know you have respite. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually required self-care. It's necessary and it's required. And it's not at every VA. I would like for us to see it at every VA so that we can have more caregivers taking care of themselves like they need to.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We're talking about bold next steps, and so I want to leave everybody with this. If there's one thing I took away from this panel for sure, and I hope you all in the room and online as caregivers heard this time and time again from this group and throughout this convening, is respite. Respite, respite, respite. You guys need to take care of yourselves. And I know that that's hard. I get it. I really do. I'm a mom of 3 children, and it is so hard to mother and to caregive and to do all these things. So to even contemplate taking 2 minutes for yourself to have that cup of coffee that you don't warm up 7 times? Am I right? Okay. Right, thank you. 7 times at least. Take those hour to yourself and don't warm up that cup of coffee one morning, or go out on your back porch, or go for a walk, or whatever it is that works for you. That's the bold step I heard today, is to sign up for respite. And I hope all of you heard that too, and take that away from today's panel members. And again, thank you for being here, and thank you, caregivers, for what you do. I believe next we have our Campaign for Inclusive Care Award, so I will pause there. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Joanne Jenkins, Chief Executive Officer of AARP, America's largest membership organization with 38 million Americans 50 and over. and we're proud to serve nearly 6 million AARP members who are current or former military service members. We've created free resources, tools, and community programs to help veterans and military families meet their daily challenges head-on, whether on the job or at home. For example, the AARP Fraud Watch Network, in partnership with Operation Protect Veterans, has a new online Veterans Fraud Center detailing the latest scams targeting veterans and military families and tips on how to stay safe. AARP's Veterans and Military Spouse Job Center provides a one-stop job hub where you can get free tools, resources, and skills builder courses, and our job board directly connects veterans and military spouses to service-friendly employers wanting to hire them. When you're a military veteran caregiver, you start young, care longer, and face many unique challenges. That's why AARP provides a military caregiving guide and a veterans health benefits navigator. Through our 53 state offices and nationwide network, AARP can help you find a new mission through volunteer service that provides the right opportunity to give back to your community and fellow veterans. At AARP, we're on a mission to support veterans and military families. Thank you.
Hi, folks. I'm Pete Jeffries, National Director of AARP's Veterans and Military Families Initiative. And most importantly, I was a caregiver for my Korean War U.S. Army combat veteran father just before he passed. And is that not the biggest labor of love that we can all experience? And most importantly, for us to be able to share that we all are caregivers, that's a first step towards getting more recognition as well as the support and services that we need. I'm here today to share part of the Santa Claus portion of today's program, which is make sure that you have a pen and a piece of paper handy, because I'm going to give you a few free resources and tools that you can access online, all free. Don't we love free? And we can take this journey together. What started 7 years ago with the Dole Foundation and AARP working together resulted in this military caregiving guide. We had talked with Steve and the Dole team about what can we do to put something in people's hands that will make that journey a little bit easier. And so we came up with a 42-page guide that has checklists and to-do lists and the basics of how to begin that journey for caregiving. We've now downsized it to a military caregiving handbook. So here's a couple of websites that you can go and get free downloads of these two materials. One is aarp.org/vetscareguide. The other is aarp.org/vetscarehandbook. Today, I am proud to announce that the Dole Foundation and AARP is debuting a new mental and emotional health support pocket guide for veteran and military family caregivers. What have we talked about when we're on this journey about bold steps today? So much is about the emotional and mental support for both our caregivers and our veterans. So for this, go to our main website, aarp.org/veterans, and up in the top right corner, we have a hot button for you to be able to immediately download this about 12-page guide that will help folks on that mental and emotional support journey. With that, the previous panel talked a little bit about respite relief. We're here to talk about action steps, right? We're proud to co-sponsor with the Dole Foundation and others the Respite Relief Program, which has now served over $1 million in free services. And that's so critical for our friends in the caregiving community to be able to take that break, get a little bit of a respite relief. So I want to make sure that we fire up the Dole Foundation website today. So go to www.hiddenheroes.org. That's hiddenheroes.org, so that if you are a caregiver out there, you can apply for some of this free assistance. It's so critical to get that break, because if you can't take care of yourself, you certainly cannot take care of your loved one. So last but not least, we are so looking forward to working with the Dole Foundation going forward on a new program together on financial wellness. And you've heard her name before, you'll hear it again. Sean Moore is a rock star with the Dole Foundation. And so we're looking forward to sharing our new materials as it relates to veteran and military spouse, as well as caregiver job search at our aarp.org/vetsjobcenter, so that folks that are part of the caregiving community also can be fully employed, not underemployed, but fully employed and seeking their aspirational goals while also being on that caregiving journey. That's it, folks. Thanks for giving me the time. Such an honor to be here, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
No one knows how to support veterans better than their caregivers. Every day, millions of caregivers provide countless hours of care for wounded, ill, or injured veterans. We learned from caregivers that despite being experts on their veterans' unique health needs, they were often left out of crucial conversations with their veterans care team. This led the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and USAA to develop the Campaign for Inclusive Care, with the goal of changing the culture of care at VA. The campaign equips care teams with the tools they need to integrate caregivers into the clinical visit and empowers caregivers to engage with the care team and advocate for their veterans' needs. We do this through our clinical education program, the Academy for Inclusive Care, on-site trainings, summits, resource fairs, and distributing clinical resources. Changing the culture of care takes time and hard work. To recognize those VA clinicians and staff who are going above and beyond to implement inclusive care, we launched the Champion of Inclusive Care Awards. These champions are ushering in a new era of healthcare where caregivers are heard and appreciated for the best outcomes for our veterans. And now, please join us in congratulating our 2022 Champion of Inclusive Care Award recipients.
Please welcome Dole Caregiver Fellows, Georgette Wenton and Roxana Delgado, and U.S. Army veteran Victor Medina.
Hello, my name is Dr. Roxana Delgado. I'm a health scientist, but I'm also an Elizabeth Dole Fellow, class of 2015, representing the state of Texas. In 2017, the Elizabeth Dole Foundation came up with the bold idea to address the issue of caregiver inclusiveness on clinical care teams. They realized that this was a major challenge that would require thinking outside the box and creating a systems-level approach to how clinicians do their work and interact with families. That is why the Elizabeth Dole Foundation launched the Campaign for Inclusive Care, a joint initiative of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you. Graciously supported by USAA, to shift the culture of care that embraces, engages, and empowers caregivers, clinicians, and veterans throughout the entire care journey from day one. As someone who has seen the real impact, I know that inclusive care increases the capacity and competency of the entire care team to deliver appropriate, efficient, effective, and highly valued services. It improves health outcomes, relationships, quality of life, and supports systems-wide performance. It is truly team-based, with care being a partnership among the clinician-veteran care team and family caregivers like myself. It is centered on sound communication and secure feedback from all care partners. Since its inception, the Campaign for Inclusive Care has reached many key milestones that include expansion to all VA facilities nationwide, training of thousands of VA clinicians and staff on caregiver grassroots army of champions of inclusive care around the country. However, we know that there is still much more work to be done. Today, I am excited to be standing here at the 2022 National Caregiver Convening to announce one of the 2022 Campaign for Inclusive Care Champion awardees. The Champion of Inclusive Care Award is given yearly to providers and staff that demonstrated extraordinary care and compassion that is fully inclusive of the veteran's caregiver from day one of the care journey. These distinguished clinicians have been nominated by hidden heroes like myself and veterans who feel their lives have been positively impacted by feeling empowered, included, and recognized for their caregiving role. I now would like to introduce Georgette Wenton, a 2021 Dole Caregiver Fellow, to announce this year's Inclusive Care Champion awardee. Georgette.
Hello, my name is Georgette Wenton, and I am a 2021 Dole Caregiver Fellow from the state of Pennsylvania. My husband Jason and I started dating in 2013, 22 years after his service in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Our relationship was mostly normal back then. We married in October of 2015, and a year later, his health began deteriorating. I gradually began taking on more caregiver responsibilities. In February 2019, my husband had a bilateral amputation. He lost both feet and part of his legs from mid-calf down. It was then that I became Jason's full-time caregiver. It was also in 2019 that we transitioned from Jason's previous PACT provider to Dr. Freewald. During the transition, various VA staff would say, "You see Dr. Freewald? Have you met him yet? He's nice." After the third or fourth time we had this conversation, Jason and I looked at each other and we said, either he really is nice or this is going to be really interesting. Thankfully, he is nice. But more importantly, he has been a champion of inclusive care since our first appointment. That is why I am excited to have nominated and announce this year's 2022 Champion of Inclusive Care, Dr. Jeremy Freewald from the Wilkes-Barre VA Medical Center in Pennsylvania. From my experience, when Dr. Freewald enters a room, he always addresses my veteran first, and then me, always shaking my hand. I am included from the beginning. He addresses my husband and his needs, but once their interaction is done, he addresses me and asks what I would like to cover. He is patient as I ask my questions and raise my concerns. As I was facing my own health issues, he gave me advice to help me address my medical needs. And I have heard many similar experiences from other caregivers whose veterans are treated by Dr. Freewald. He makes the experience comfortable. It's easy to share my concerns and ask questions. I can help present the whole picture so Dr. Freewald can make better decisions about Jason's care, and I can provide better care and re-answer any questions my husband has once we leave the office. Because I am included, the quality of the care I provide Jason increases. During one appointment, I thanked Dr. Freewald for making sure I was included in Jason's care. He responded that for him, it's part of making sure he can provide the best care possible for his veterans. This is inclusive care, and this is why inclusive care is important to me and all the caregivers around the country. Congratulations, Dr. Freewald.
My name is U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Victor Medina. I'm a Purple Heart recipient after being wounded in action in Iraq in 2009. First, I do have a speech impairment, so bear with me here. We are excited to announce the 2022 Inclusive Care Facility and Team Award. This year, the award goes to Dr. Rebecca Tapia at the Polytrauma Rehabilitation Center, Audie Murphy Memorial Veterans Hospital in San Antonio, Texas. I remember since 2016 when I had my first appointment with Dr. Tapia. I didn't know what to expect, but when I walked through those double doors of the polytrauma, I started noticing everybody was smiling at me, and they were like happy I was there. And then my wife Roxana, she's always smiling. So I'm like, well, they are. This is great dynamic. I'm an introvert, so and then due to my injuries, I have flat affect, so I have to remind myself like smile. Right. But then finally, I reached Dr. Tapia's office, and her level of compassion was to be admired. She never pushes an agenda or what she thinks without this causing it first with Roxana and I. She always asked Roxana's input. She asked what I think of the treatment plan. But then when I give my two cents, and she always checks with Roxana to get her thoughts on it as well. And then always very welcoming, always open for discussion, always open to share her knowledge with us. But then I started seeing other providers in the facility, and I started noticing it's not only Dr. Tapia, it's like Dr. Camacho and the rest of the staff that are as compassionate, as kind, and their level of care is top notch. And it is a level of, it's an organizational culture they have, because this level of compassion, you cannot fake this. You cannot make this up. So it's something that is ingrained in the way they operate. I can compare the polytrauma to back in 2011 to the National Intrepid Center here in Walter Reed. That type of culture that it is very impacting. They always go after what I want in my life, in my treatment, as well as that of my wife. When the pandemic hit, they went above and beyond. I get injections at the facility, so they were not doing in-person appointments. So we did them virtual, and they explored new modalities, different things that I could do at home, new medications. And before they even prescribe, they're like, we're going to send you the information, and then we're going to schedule another appointment, and it would be great if your wife is there with you, so we can answer any questions. And it has been fantastic. And today I'm fully independent, and as a certified rehabilitation counselor, I work with veterans, and I advise them on how to navigate the system so they can try to reach a polytrauma referral or whatnot. So I have come to find out I'm not an isolated story. Every veteran that I know is part of the polytrauma in San Antonio have had the same experience I have. So I would like to say congratulations to Dr. Tapia and the team at the polytrauma. Certainly my life is better with her and her team on my side. So congratulations.
So this is actually what inclusive care is all about. This is inclusive care. I don't go with Victor now to all appointments, but then he always comes back home and say, hey, they missed you. And and I love because whenever there's a decision-making process, so any change of medication, anything, for anything, they wait, they invite me, they said, I know your wife is busy, but maybe on the next appointment she wants to be here so we can all make that decision together. And that's what inclusive care is all about. I have peace of mind, I can continue my career because I know that if there's anything they need from me, they're gonna either send an email to Victor or go through Victor, or they're gonna quickly pick up the phone and call me, because that has happened. So thank you, Dr. Tapia. They are not here today, but they're all watching at the Polytrauma, so hello. We love you. And this has been 6 years of treatment, so it's not just one instance. It's been 6 years of amazing care. So congratulations to this year's champions, and they're getting their awards. And to all the honorable mention nominees, your dedication and commitment to including, empowering, recognizing our nation's hidden heroes, all for the best health outcomes for our veterans and loved ones. Collectively, by rallying around inclusive care, we can make change in creating more culturally inclusive care teams around the country. I am honored and dedicated to be part of this effort. Thank you, Senator Dole, for making me part of this. For those of you watching today who would like to get involved in the Campaign for Inclusive Care movement, you know you can do it too. Please go to campaignfoриnclusivecare.org. So go online, sign up. If you're a healthcare provider, take the Academy for Inclusive Care. So this is all about being bold and be brave and be courageous. And all of us working together, the family members, the healthcare providers, the veterans, all of us, we love celebrating. We like Meg Kabat said, keeping accountability and coming to you when things may not be perfect. But you know what? We also need to celebrate and recognize those who are going above and beyond and are changing and transforming lives like the ones that you see here today. Thank you so much.
Please welcome back to the stage, CEO of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, Steve Schwab, and the Executive Director, Caregiver Support Program at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, Dr. Colleen Richardson.
I have had the honor and the privilege of serving this community for most of the Foundation's 10 years, and I've learned so much about human strength and devotion, and I am a better person, a better American because of it, because of all of you and all of you watching. This entire day and our Foundation's entire mission is to make sure that we do right by our military and veteran caregivers. You have earned and you deserve your nation's support. And our partners at the VA believe and are committed to that principle as well. I think you've seen that all throughout the day today. To ensure we do this right in the long term, we need to make sure that we have the latest data and research to support your lives today, tomorrow, and many years into the future. And that is why we're so excited to announce a new seminal study by RAND. We obviously announced that last fall, supported by Wounded Warrior Project and the Lilly Endowment. This new landmark study is now underway and will help us develop a long-term roadmap to support you, your veterans, and your families. And many of you will have a chance to impact that study, the outcomes, the findings through surveys and focus groups. And we're so excited that Dr. Richardson and the VA and other agencies of government are in on the foundational aspects of the study from the beginning, because we're gonna figure this out together. In the meantime, remember that at the foundation we have numerous direct service programs to support your needs. If you're not currently a part of the Hidden Heroes caregiver community, please go to hiddenheroes.org and connect today. You'll find rich resources, countless caregivers to meet and learn from and lean on, expert facilitators on all kinds of fronts, and the support that you need and deserve. We're here for you every day, every night, whenever you need us.
Thanks, Steve. On behalf of the Department of Veterans Affairs, let me say how grateful we are to partner with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation for putting caregivers front and center at this event, but most importantly, throughout the entire year. It's a 24/7 job, somebody's already said it. Steve, you and your team have done tremendous work responding to the needs of our caregivers. Our partnership highlights EDF's and VA's shared belief that caregivers are essential to veterans' care, and that caregivers themselves have earned our nation's gratitude and our support. For our caregivers, I just want to take a moment and remind you that we are committed to strengthening VA's program of comprehensive assistance for family caregivers and continuing to enhance the program of general caregiver support services. We are proud of the progress we've made thus far, and we will continue to build on that progress with our partners like you, Steve, at the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and with all of you as caregivers along the way. I can tell you as a veteran myself, I often get thanked for my service, and I'm very appreciative of that. But let me take a moment, and I hope this isn't too cliche, but I want to thank you for your service. You are the backbones of what we do every single day. You are the ones who keep our families together. You are the one who go through the blood, sweat, and tears of being a caregiver. You're silent oftentimes, and we want to see you. I want to tell you that I see you, and I hear you, and we want to work with you to get everything right for you. So thank you for what you do. We're very grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richardson. That means so much to me and to all the caregivers. We do, in fact, see you, and we are here for you every single day. Now, before we close, I'd like to thank our convening speakers, especially Senator Dole, Deputy Secretary Remy, Meg Cabot, Dr. Richardson, Kim Mingo, Mike Linnington, who we had some technical difficulties with, but stay tuned, because at the end we're going to re-show that video because Mike was not able to be heard by our virtual audience, and all of our expert panelists who just passionately shared their stories and expertise with our community. I also want to give a special recognition to all the caregivers who participated today and shared their direct experiences and heartfelt stories. It was real for those of us watching and for all the folks who are with us around the country. I want you to know that we matter. As Dr. Richardson said, we see you and we'll never stop supporting you and your families. This is an enduring commitment, an enduring partnership. And again, join us at hiddenheroes.org so that we can connect you to critical resources, invite you into a community of caregivers just like you. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Philips. Thank you, Comcast. Thank you, Wounded Warrior Project, Humana, Cerner, our friends at TAPS and the Red Cross, AARP, and so many others for making today possible. Have a great rest of your day. And whether you're in this country or in another watching us, just know that our conversation doesn't end today. It continues, and we look forward to staying engaged. Thanks so much, Colleen.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lieutenant General Retired Mike Linnington, CEO of Wounded Warrior Project. It's a privilege and an honor to speak with you today about our enduring partnership with the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. This is a special day. 10 years ago, Senator Elizabeth Dole first called military caregivers America's hidden heroes, not only because our nation had overlooked their service, but because our country knew almost nothing about them. We didn't know how many Americans were even caring for veterans. We didn't know how many were caring for physical wounds, emotional wounds, or both. We didn't have a grasp on how some policies and programs were leaving behind caregivers because of their role in the family, their era of service, or the type of injury their veterans sustained. We didn't have the data to illustrate the scope of this problem. That's why Wounded Warrior Project has been a deeply invested partner of Elizabeth Dole Foundation from day one. Our partnership with Elizabeth Dole Foundation, in concert with our partners at the Department of Veterans Affairs, our leaders here in Washington, D.C., and other veteran service organizations around the country, expands the resources available to America's injured veterans and helps ensure they and their families are thriving long term. The 2014 RAND study was a truly landmark study. Wounded Warrior Project invested in the study to generate high quality and rigorous findings that not only served as a roadmap for Wounded Warrior Project, but it was the go-to guide for every veteran and military serving organization, corporate partner, congressional member, and even the VA itself. The discoveries made in the RAND report drove Elizabeth Dole Foundation to create the Hidden Heroes campaign. They served as the bedrock for new programs built around respite care, financial literacy, skills training, mental and emotional support, and caregiver employment. Wounded Warrior Project is proud of what our partnership has accomplished over this past decade, and we are excited for what is to come. Through our investments, we're committed to discovering new insights by working with RAND again to prioritize reviewing how caregiver well-being in communities, rural, urban, and suburban, impacts, limits, or supports opportunities for them to thrive. Wounded Warrior Project is also taking bold action to support America's caregiver kids and youth, our Hidden Helpers. We are co-chairing the Hidden Helpers Coalition with Elizabeth Dole Foundation and working with First Lady Jill Biden's Joining Forces initiatives. We're also working with more than 60 diverse partners that comprise the Hidden Helpers Coalition to fill in that knowledge, identify resource gaps, and execute innovative solutions. Last November, Wounded Warrior Project announced a new $1.5 million dedicated fund during a Hidden Helpers Coalition event at the White House. Through this investment, we're partnering with best-in-class veterans and military service organizations to provide an extensive network of programs and services for the youngest caregivers of America's wounded warriors. At Wounded Warrior Project, our mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors and their families. But no one organization can meet all their needs. We believe in supporting the entire military veteran ecosystem. That means the entire family unit must be supported for warriors to not only build a new normal, but for them to thrive in their civilian lives. And just as important, for caregivers to live fulfilling lives as well. Wounded Warrior Project is excited to continue to come together and identify bold, innovative solutions for military families around the country. And we're equally proud to continue standing alongside our friends at the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. Congratulations, Elizabeth Dole Foundation, on all your achievements over the past decade. We are excited to see the impact and milestones you have yet to achieve. Thank you, and God bless you all.
program has ended. Please enjoy your lunch.